What is going on, guys, and welcome to HTML tutorial for beginners, which is the first part of HTML and CSS projects course. So what we will be learning in HTML tutorial for beginners, we will learn what is HTML, how to write HTML, how to use HTML, and also as a part of the tutorial, we will cover brackets text editor and build our first website project. Now, you don't need to use brackets text editor if you prefer to use some other text editors like Sublime or Atom. I just like to use brackets text editor because in my opinion it is easier for all the newcomers. In this tutorial, we'll start everything from the scratch, so if you have no prior knowledge of HTML or web development, or you just want to refresh your skills, you're more than welcome to join us. The only thing you'll need is a computer and a Google Chrome browser if you will be using brackets text editor, as Google Chrome is set as a default for brackets text editor live preview. Now you can always find me in two places. First one would be Udemy, where you're watching the tutorial right now. If you search for John Smilgan, you can see my courses over here. Or you can go to YouTube and search for the greatest channel of all time, ladies and gentlemen, Coding Addict. That's the place where you can find me. And like I said before, throughout the tutorial, we're going to be working on our first website project, where we're going to be putting all our knowledge of HTML that we learned into actual real website. So over here, you can see that it's going to consist of 5 pages. So this is going to be the main one, the home page. And over here, this is going to be an about page over here with a few articles. Then we'll have a numbers page, right? We're going to look at a small table. Then we'll have a location. We're going to be using a Google Maps to display the locations. And over here, this is going to be contact page. We're going to be putting all the knowledge of HTML forms. So let's not waste any of our time and let's start learning what is HTML. And HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And what this mumbo jumbo gibberish means is that HTML is not a programming language, it is a markup language. And HTML elements are building blocks of web pages. In other words, HTML is responsible for the structure of our web pages. Therefore, it's so important to learn HTML. And HTML elements are represented by tags. So here are a few examples. If I would want a heading in my web page or web project, I would have to use a heading tag. If I would want some kind of paragraph, I would have to use a paragraph tags over here. Over here, you can see that this is going to be a link tag. Now, some tags are going to have a opening over here and closing tag. Some elements like image, for example, over here, it's going to be a only single tag. And few words about brackets text editor. The brackets text editor is an open source project funded by Adobe, and it is MIT licensed. In other words, it's for free. And brackets is built in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And brackets has a lot of great features, but it is actually very easy to understand for anybody who is just starting out. And first things first, let's go ahead and let's download brackets text editor. So we're going to go to our good old friend Google. And over here, we're going to write brackets text editor, right? And once we hit enter over here, you can see that this is going to be our first link. And fear not, this is not some kind of scam, right? You can just go over here and click download. And over here right now, we're downloading 1.11. But obviously, by the time you'll be watching this, maybe this is going to be 2.20. Like, I really don't know. So over here, you can see that right now it's downloading, right? And obviously, this is going to be in my downloads, right? So the moment it's going to be done, it's going to be exactly where I want it to be in my downloads, right? So right now it's showing, right? So if I click over here, you can see that it's saying, well, I'm opening the brackets right now. So stop rushing me over here, right? We don't want to click cancel or skip, right? We want the file. So let's just wait for another, I don't know, 5 seconds or something, right? And over here, it's going to start downloading, right? And the only thing we need to do over here is I'm just going to drag it to my application over here, right? And you can see that it's for some reason fighting me on this, right? And now that I'm done, it's actually going to be in my application. And now that we have downloaded our text editor, our brackets text editor, if we go over here to the launchpad and we click over here to the brackets, right? You can see that they're all going to be showing up in our doc, right? So over here, we can double click, right? And we can say keep it in a doc. So they're always there. And unless you're doing some kind of dark magic, this is what you're going to see, right? So this is going to be the brackets in the beginning. And I don't want to go right now in a big detail about everything about brackets, right? Because we're going to be covering those things throughout the course, and I don't want to bore you to death right now, right? But again, don't be scared of what you're seeing right now. You're going to see all these things, right? But you can see over here, these are going to be the tags that we talked about, right? So one tag, the heading 2 tag, the paragraph tag, right? So this is what I'm talking about, that the HTML is actually structured from the tags, right? And the first thing that we want to do is actually create a new folder in our desktop, right? So here I'm going to say new folder, right? And let's go here and I'm going to rename, and I'm going to say that this is going to be HTML, right? So over here, we just need to make sure that I'm working with a folder, right? And this is going to be the HTML. And now I want to show you 3 ways how we can actually get a folder that we're going to be working on, or any folder that you're going to be working on in the future, to the brackets. Now the first one, the most easiest one, we can just grab over here, right? When we grab this folder over here like this, and once we hover over here, right, if we let go, obviously this folder is going to be here. Now this is going to be our first option, right? Now the second option obviously would be going through the file, right? And you can go over here, you can say open folder, right? And over here it says, well, do you want the changes, right? Because I messed up a little bit over here. I'm going to say don't, right? Don't save the changes. And over here it's giving us an option, right? So which folder you would want to open, right? Whether this one, HTML, or you want to go somewhere in documents, right? So obviously we would want the HTML. This is our folder that we just created. Now after that, we have third and probably most convenient option, right? Because over here you can see all the folders that I've been working on, right? So over here you can see that this is going to be the JS, right? The recent one that I have ever worked on, right? And this is going to be the case if you're actually having bunch of folders and you don't want to go through your actual files, right? You can right away go over here with this getting with open folder method, right? Now I'm going to choose this method, right? So I'm just going to drag this one over here, and it's saying again, do you want to keep the changes? I'm going to say no, I don't want to keep the changes, right? And you can see that right now we have a brand new open folder, right? Completely nothing in there, right? And the first thing that we're going to do is actually double click over here, right click over here, and you can see we have the options: new file, new folder, rename, delete, right? Show and finder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here and I'm going to say new file. And what we're going to name our file is going to be index.html. And this is important that we call it both the index, and we also call it the HTML. The index is going to be our main web page for whatever folder we're working on, and actually HTML is going to tell let's say Chrome or any other browser that we're working with a HTML file, right? Because there's CSS, there's JavaScript, I mean there's tons of other file types, and we would want the actual browser to know that what we're creating, right? So here what we're going to do is we're just going to double click over here, and you can see that this little icon, right? So what this means is that Chrome already knows right away that if we're double clicking over here, right, if we do something like this, you can see that it's actually opens in the web page, right? Now there's nothing in here, it's completely empty, but you can see that we technically created our first web. So now that we have our feet a little bit wet, let's go ahead and let's create our actual web page, right? So over here, I'm going to maximize it full screen. And if you remember that in the HTML, if we wanted some kind of element, right? So if we wanted a heading, right? We first created a tag, right? So then if we wanted an image, right? So we would again create a tag. Then if we would want, I don't know, a form, right? So then we would create a tag. So you're starting to get the idea. For anything, right? If we want to place anything in our web page, right? What we need to do is create a little container, right? Now, before we do that, there's actually something called structure, right? So, or HTML skeleton, right? So basically how the document should be set up, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of cheating right now, but then we're going to actually write it line by line ourselves anyway, right? So here you can see that I'm just getting a basic skeleton. And don't worry where I'm getting it. I'm just going to show you in a few videos anyway, right? But what we're getting is basic HTML skeleton, right? And this is how all your documents should start, at least, right? So here we'll have a doc type, right? Which pretty much tells what type of which version of HTML it is, right? So right now we're working with HTML5, right? So here this is how we should write, right? So don't expect any kind of element popping up from this tag, right? So this is not actually like an HTML tag that would actually give you an element, right? This is just that tells the browser what version of HTML are we using, right? And like I said, we're using HTML5. Then over here, this is going to be the HTML tags, right? You can see that they're going to wrap everything, right? Which is going to tell the browser, like I said over here with the same with this one, that this is an HTML, right? So this is going to be the HTML document. And then we have two interesting things over here, right? Don't worry over here about these meta tags, right? What I want to focus on is over here. You can see this head, right? And then we have the body, right? And you can think very, very simply that head is for a search engines over here, and the body is actually for us to actually place the elements, right? So again, if we want an image, we're not going to go over here and place it in the head tags, right? We're actually going to place it over here in the body, and because this is what's actually going to be showing up on our page. This is what the search engines are going to actually read, right? So therefore, don't worry again about these meta tags, right? Actually, as we're going to be learning, we're not going to be using them because I don't want you to keep thinking that you need to memorize tons and tons of stuff, which is you don't, right? You can learn this stuff later. It's not a really big deal. It's most important that you learn actually the most important stuff, which is the HTML tags that help you to place the elements on a page, right? So again, not to cluster your head, I'm just going to delete this right now, right? And over here you have a title, right? And this is the title of the page that's actually going to be showing up, right? So over here, if we're going to write, let's say, my first web page, right? This is actually going to be showing, right? You can see over here by mistake I actually created more tags, right? So my first web page, right? So this is going to be the actual title, right? And also in the head, we're actually going to be linking with CSS, right? When in later chapters, once we start working with CSS, we're actually going to be linking here our main CSS style sheets, right? And in the body, we're actually placing a JavaScript, right? So it's a little bit off, right? So again, don't worry about these things right now, right? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete, and we're going to create a brand new one so we can all do it together, right? So again, like I said, always our document should start like this, right? With HTML5, we're going to type like this, right? Doc type over here, and then we're going to say over here HTML, right? So this is going to be our first tag. And you can see that it already lights up differently, right? You can see that it's white and everything else is going to be actually blue. So if we go over here, if we remember, then we have HTML. Right, so this is where everything should be wrapped in, right? So this is going to be our main container. This is where our head is going to be. This is where our body tags are going to be. And you can see right away that the HTML structure is that we're wrapping everything, right? So over here, we have HTML tags, right? Now we're not going to do it like this. We're not going to write head. And then we're going to say over here that the head is going to be somewhere. Let's say I'm going to cut it, right? And I'm going to place it over here, right? Like head. So you can see that right away the brackets is telling me, listen, buddy, you're not pretty smart, right? Because this is not the syntax that HTML understands, right? So everything is going to be actually wrapped around, right? So if we have the HTML, the head elements over here are going to be sitting. Now, if we want to place some elements over here, they're going to be wrapped in both of the heading tags, right? So they're going to be like a container around them. Now over here, we're going to say this is going to be our next tag, which is going to be our body tag. And this is where we're going to be doing most of our work, right? So over here, for now, only thing we'll be doing is we're going to create a title, right? And we're just going to name our web page, right? So far, that's the only thing we're going to do, right? So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to write over here that this is going to be, I don't know, my first web page, right? So again, we're not going to repeat. This is not going to be very original. My first or here web page, right? And what we would need to do right now in the brackets, right? We can go over here to the file and you can see save, right? But I encourage you actually to start using these shortcuts, right? Because they were going to save you time that not every time you just need to jump back to this menu, right? And start looking for something that you need, right? Now, I obviously don't encourage you right away start memorizing something that you're not using because it doesn't make really sense, right? But something like save, which is you're going to be doing a lot, right? Right away, you can see over here what kind of shortcut we need to press. And obviously there's going to be difference between a Microsoft and whether you're using Apple, right? But just start trying to memorize, right? So I'm going to save this one over here. And if we go back, I'm going to go back to our desktop and we just double click it over here in the folder. And don't be scared, double click over here in this file, right? So we're going to press over here and you can see that this was our previous one, right? That didn't have the name. And over here we have our first web page. Again, we don't have the bunch of elements, right? We don't have the fancy stuff yet, right? But we're starting to get there, right? Because now we have our first web page. And over here, you can see that it obviously tells me the path, right? So this is going to be users. This is going to be my last name, desktop, HTML, and index HTML. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close everything and we can move on to a next. Now that we have created our first website, let's go ahead and let's start actually adding some elements, right? So again, I'm going to go over here to the brackets and I'm actually going to minimize this just to show you something really, really cool about brackets, right? So now you can see that this was our first document, right? So this is our first web page. Now, if you click over here, this lightning bolt, right? You can see what's going to happen, right? Actually, we have something called live preview. So all the changes that we're going to be doing, we're not going to have to save it, then go back to HTML, then double click or refresh if we already have it open, right? The changes are going to right away appear over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this bigger and this bigger, right? So they're actually side by side, right? Over here like this. And then I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller over here like this, just so we have a little bit of view, right? Where we're working. And just to make it a little bit cleaner, I'm gonna actually delete some of the spaces, right? So we have a little bit more room to actually work where we're at, right? And the first tags that we're gonna be covering, right? The first elements that we're gonna be covering is actually gonna be a heading element, right? So how do we write a headings in HTML? What would be the syntax, right? And the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna create our opening tag, right? So over here, I'm gonna write that this is gonna be heading. And you can see that the brackets are going to right away going to give you these options, right? And we're going to talk about these options, this quick preview a little bit later. But just for now, type H1, right? So over here, what I'm going to say that this is I am, right? And I'm going to say heading 1, right? So this is the main heading. This is going to be the biggest heading that you can have from a HTML, right? Now you can see that the browser reads it correctly, right? You can see the browser sees, okay, so a heading 1. And whatever is inside over here, this is going to be heading 1. Now, what we need to remember that if we start typing something outside the browser, right, you can see that this is not going to be anymore heading 1 because this is not placed inside here. And also another thing that we need to understand that, let's say over here, if I keep typing and then I just keep pressing backspace, right? And if I keep typing again, right, you can see that browser doesn't see the difference. Right? There is no line breaks. This is not a Word document where we can just jump 20 lines down, right? So you can see that still everything is typed in one line, right? So if we want to actually create line breaks, we're going to have to create something like an element, right? Not like an element, actually element, right? But we regressed. So over here, you can see that this is heading 1, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? And the reason why we did 5, because there's going to be 5 of them, right? And we're just going to go over them. So this is going to be heading 2. And over here, we can see that this is going to be smaller, right? So over here, you can see that right away, this is heading 1 and this is heading 2. And with the brackets, these blue lines is basically this just telling you that, listen, we're working with this element right now, right? So you are right here, right? And as I change it, you can see that I'm going to be in heading 3. Now, what's also cool about the brackets, that I can go backwards, right? So if I press over here on this element, right? So which is going to be actually our heading 6. If we go back over here, this is going to be heading 6. This is going to be the smaller one, right? So if I click over here, it tells me right away where I'm at, right? Which doesn't seem like a big deal once we have only 6 headings, right? But if we're going to have, let's say, full documents, it's really, really easy if we're working with a live preview to actually see where we're at. And now we're going to change all of them. I'm going to say heading 4 over here. This is going to be heading 4. And this is going to be heading 4. This guy is going to be heading 5. And this guy is going to be heading 5. So now you can see that I have 1, 2, 3, and over here 5, 6, right? And congratulations. We have built our first element and their heading. So which is actually very important if you're working with titles, right? So this is something that you would use for titles, right? Now, obviously, for the bigger titles, it would be heading 1, and over here for this heading 6 would be the smaller title, right? So it would be something like a sub. And the next element we're going to look at is going to be paragraphs, right? So how to create paragraphs in HTML. So if we already know the headings, right? And we should start retyping everything that we have learned. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to retype it all the time, but just because you typed it once and learn how to do it, it actually doesn't mean that you actually learn it and we're going to remember it, right? So we're going to type again that this is going to be our heading, right? And we're going to remember how to create it, right? So this was the opening tag, this was the closing tag. And over here, again, we're going to write that this is going to be I am heading 1, right? So I am, over here, heading 1, over here. And then if we want, let's say, a paragraph, right, that's going to have some kind of description about this heading 1, right? So we don't want a subtitle, right? So if heading 6, in this case, would be a subtitle, right? Or let's say subheading, right? So over here, I'm going to say I am subheading, right? Over here like this. Now, but what if I would want an actual paragraph about this? What I would do over here, you can see again, we're going to start with our opening tags, right? And I'm going to press P. And P is going to stand for actually paragraph, right? And again, over here, I'm just going to write that I am, and I'm going to say paragraph over here, right? And what we can do is we can just copy and paste this, right? So we have much more, right? And over here, you can see how the paragraph would look like, right? So let's imagine that this would be the text, right? So over here, this would be a heading 1. This is going to be a heading 6, those things we learned. And this is going to be the paragraph, right? And again, the syntax is P over here and P at the end. And you can see that this is going to be this /, right? So which signals, right, that this is going to be the closing tag over. And in this video, we're going to talk about code hints in brackets. And what are the code hints? So you can see over here, if I'm starting to type my first element, right? So let's say I want to put some kind of element, but let's say I forgot, or I just don't want to type the whole name, right? So the moment I press H over here, right? If I would want to put HTML tag, right? It gives me right away this option, right? So even with the heading 1, right? You can see I don't need to type anything. I just press enter, right? And you can see over here that it stops technically, right? Because it's waiting for something like attributes, which we're going to cover actually in a few sections. But over here, if we just put a closing tag, right, you can see that right away we are in the middle of a tag, right? And we have over here this our closing tag, right? So we don't need to actually go ahead and retype everything and then have the closing tag, right? So the brackets is gonna right away gonna give you two things, right? First, it's gonna, the moment you're actually gonna press, it knows that you're gonna need a tag, right? So it's gonna give you a possible names, right? So if we type H, it's going to give us a headings, right? And the moment we're going to close it, it's going to give us actually a closing tag, right? So again, if we write over here heading, right? So actually the HTML knows that we're talking about headings. And the code hints make your life really, really easy. In the case, let's say sometimes, let's say you forgot, right, the name of the tag that you would want to use, right, the element, but let's say you remember the first, right, so you know that you forgot, well, which one exactly would be, I don't know, for block quote, right? But over here, as long as you know that it starts with B, right, so for the block quote, right, and we close it over here, and now we have our, and next we're gonna look how to get images to our web page, right? Because let's face it, I mean, you cannot imagine a web page that doesn't have images. Now, as we're talking about actually images and image tags and how to get images, we're going to need to talk about something else because they actually go hand in hand, right? So remember how we have the tags, right? Well, it's kind of hard to get because we have been, only thing that I keep talking about is tags all the time, right? So here you can see the image, right? Now for the tags, for the HTML elements, there's also something called attributes, right? And the attribute is actually something that describes the tag, right? So let's see over here, right? So I created an image, right? And you can see that nothing happens, right? Because what we would need is actually an attribute. In this case, this is going to be source attribute, which pretty much explains to the browser about this element, right? So over here, you can see that the source is actually going to explain where we're getting this image from, right? So now I can see I have nothing in my folder, and we're obviously going to need to go to online and find the image and actually drag it over here. But the point is, it's actually the image tag is useless without this attribute, right? Now there's going to be different attributes, right? There's going to be attributes that you can actually use on all the elements, right? So let's say over here I would have a heading 1, and I would create a class attribute, right? And I will say that this is going to be heading, right? And I can use the same attribute over here with this image, right? Now the difference is for the source, it would be specific to a image tag, right? And there's going to be also different tags that use this source. But the point is that there's a difference. There's going to be some attributes that you can use on all the HTML elements. There's going to be some that are actually going to be very specific to that particular element, right? So now that we have covered that, we know what is actually a attribute, right? What we would need to do is actually get over here the actual image, right? So let me just delete this. And if I just make this one smaller over here and our Google bigger, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say funny images, right? So here, images. And let's go over here and I'm just going to click right away for the first one. I don't know. Well, okay, let's do this one, right? And what we would need to do is just right click it over here. And you can see that you have a same image as, right? And what it does is that right away we can write what would be the name, right? So over here, I'm going to say funny, and I'm going to go look for desktop, and I'm going to look for our folder, right? Now you can save it anywhere you want, right? And I'm going to show you how the directories work in general, right? But just for the easiest path right now, let's just save it over here. And you can see that we don't need to specifically say what type of over here style it is, right? You can see that it right away knows that it's going to be JPEG, right? So we can close this one over here. And we go back to the images, right? And you can see with the brackets, right? We have our image right away over here, right? We know that it appears right away. It is in our folder, right? We didn't need to refresh. We didn't need to, let's say, restart or anything like that, right? So over here, you can see another nice thing about brackets, that this is going to be our preview, right? So we can right away see what type of image it is. Now, it's not a big deal, again, if we're using one, but if we have, let's say, 1520, this is going to come really handy. Now, what it also does is right away shows us the dimensions, and we're going to look at how we can change those dimensions in future videos. But for now, obviously, we're going to be using the dimensions we're getting in, right? So 197 by 256. So if we go back over here to this index HTML, and again, I'm going to make this one now bigger, right? And if we go to the source, right, and the moment I'm just going to say funny, right, you can see all I needed to type was F, right? And it knows that where the image is, right? So this is going to be our funny JPEG. So, and it is obviously located in the same folder. So therefore we don't need to have any kind of path. So I just click over here and you can see that I have my first image. Now there's few other, well, one main tag with a image, and which is alternative. And what this does is actually explains to us what is the image if actually we cannot load the image, right? So here I'm going to say that this is going to be funny man, right? You can see over here that nothing technically happens, right? Everything stays the same. But what if I change over here that it's funny, but I delete it, right, to fun? And you can see that over here it shows, well, I know there's supposed to be an image, but I cannot find it because this is funny and this is fun. And over here you can see that it's funny man. Right? So this is pretty much gives us the explanation if we cannot load the image, right? That it stays over here, this alternative, that if somebody is looking for it, he knows, okay, there's an image with a funny man, right? So again, this is a description over here about this element, right? This is the element itself over here. You can see that this is going to be this tag, right? And another interesting thing that you have noticed that what I have talked about, that not all the elements are going to have a closing tag, right? That image tag is only one single tag, right? And there is no closing tag. However, the image is going to have a source, right? Source attribute that's going to tell us where the actual image is going to be loaded. And in this video, we're going to talk about external images, right? So let's say that we don't want to save the file, right? So in the previous image, right, in order to get an image, we actually went online and we saved it, and we use a source to actually show the path where the image is located, right? But let's say that we just want to keep the image where it is online, but if we just want to reference it, right? So, but we still want it on our page. So I'm going to go back over here, and let's say over here, this Mr. Bean, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click it, and over here you can have this option, right? Copy image address, right? So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to click it, and now it's actually copied to the clipboard. And now let's refresh how we can make that image, right? So remember, we have our opening tag over here like this, and then we write img, right? And the next thing for the image, we would need to point to the source, right? So I point source, and then I say equal to, and then I have over here these double quotes, and you can see right away it gives me funny, JPEG, or index, right? But that's not what I want. I just paste over here what I had before, right? So this was my Mr. Bean, right? So if I close it over here, now you can see that I have Mr. Bean over here like this. And again, remember that this comes with our own set of dimensions, right? So remember how this one was like, I think 200 by 200, right? So this is obviously, you can right away see that it is bigger, right? So, but you can see that it's showing even though I don't have it over here in my folder, right? Because I have copied over here this attribute, right? The source attribute. And you can see the nice thing about brackets, right? Again, as I'm hovering, right? This is going to be a quick preview of what I have, right? So this is going to be this image, right? The sawdust. And over here, this is going to be quick bean, right? So this kind of helps you, again, if you have a bunch of images, right? You can just hover over and you're like, okay, so this is the image, because maybe you don't remember what means project 36 image, right? So again, over here, we can write another attribute. This is going to be alternative. I'm going to say Mr. Bean, right? And again, if I just delete one thing, right? It's not, I mean, it's saved over here because of a, you can see it disappear, right? You can see the live preview is still keeping track, right? And then it's obviously disappeared. So if I just refresh over here, right, you can see I'm still going to have my Mr. Bean. And this is how we can get images if we don't save them locally on our. And now let's talk about more image attributes, right? So you can see over here, like I was telling you, right, that we have two images, right? And one of them over here we have locally, so we can see over here 197 by 256, right, pixels. And over here you can see that Mr. Bean is obviously bigger, right? So we don't know the exact pixels that it is, but it's obviously, I mean, it's pretty straightforward that it is bigger, right? Now there is attributes with an image, right? And I'm showing you them. We're probably not going to be using them that often, right? But first of all, while you're learning, I just want to show you that they're there, right? So if you have, like, let's say massive images, right? This is the one of the ways how you can do it. And in the next video, I'm going to show you the other way, right? The other way, which actually kind of makes a little bit more sense. But over here, we have a few more attributes, right? And the first one would be over here width, right? And if we type over here width and just press enter, you can see over here that if I type 50, right, this stands for 50 pixels, right? And you can see what happened with this image, right? It right away turned over here this small, right? And what I can do over here, I can just copy this guy over here like this, copy, and add it to the Mr. Bean, right? So copy and paste, and you can see that both of them are like this right now, right? Now you can see that Mr. Bean is bigger, right? It's taller. So the width over here is for both of them 50, right? But the height obviously for this guy is obviously more, right? But let's say for the width, let's just do 100, so it's a little bit more visible. Or let's actually do 200, right? So they're both pretty big over here like this, and not 2000, actually 200. And what we can also do is write height, right? So if we have width, let's write height over here also, and we're going to say 100, and maybe that's not, let's do 200, and let's do the same thing for this guy, right? For the glitter guy, we're going to say height over here, and we're going to say 200, right? And now both of them are actually the same equal height and width. Now, again, we're not going to be doing this in general in HTML, right? Therefore, we have CSS, and therefore we actually have a Photoshop, right, where we can crop the images. Because what you need to remember is that even though we're changing over here this height, this doesn't mean the image coming from the source actually for some reason gets smaller, right? You're still, what you're seeing right now is 200 by 200, right? But let's say if you have a massive image and the browser needs to render it, it's actually going to still take a long time. Just because you set the width and height for 200, it doesn't mean that it's actually going to change, right? It's still going to treat it as a large image. It's just eventually just going to display it in much more smaller size. And in this video, we're going to look at how we can crop the images in a little bit different way, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete everything, because we should be retyping everything, so we are actually getting a hold of how we can write tags, right? So over here, I'm going to say this is going to be image and this is going to be source. And if you remember, this needs to be equal, right? And over here, we're going to say this equal to funny JPEG, right? And once we have this, Now what we would need to do is actually go ahead and get a different image, right? So here I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna find for something, right, for this guy, right? And again, over here I'm gonna save this. So I'm gonna say image as, and I'm gonna say this is gonna be funny too, right? So I'm just gonna click save. This is gonna be the same folder. And if we go back over here, and if we write an image, right, you can see that I'm not writing an alternative attribute, but we're just doing it simple way, right? So source, and over here you can see that I have funny too, right? So over here I have funny too, and you can see that they're pretty much different, right? Not pretty much, but they're actually different. And the reason why is, of course, this one is 262 by 192, and this one is 800 by 600. I actually changed it around. Remember, on your one, it's probably going to be, if you're using this image, this is going to be like 192 by something, right? So what we can do in the Mac, right? And obviously for the PC, you can just Google this and this is going to be the same thing. I mean, meaning it's going to be very, very simple, right? So we have two images, right? But we want them to actually be the same size, but we don't want to go ahead and, let's say, to each and one of them add this width 200 by 200, right? So what we can do over here is where are all our images, right? And I'm going to select both of them, but this would work if it would be 200 or 2000 of them, right? So over here, I'm going to right click it, and you can see that I have an option of open with, right? And instead of brackets, I'm going to go with a preview over here, and you can see that I have two images. What I need to do over here, again, I'm going to press Command A. So this selects all of them, right? And again, this case is going to be 2, but it could be 200. Then we go under the tools, adjust the size, right? And we have a custom. We're going to open up over here this guy, right? This little lock. And what we're going to do is, let's say all of them are going to be 320 by 240. Press OK. And now both of them are going to be exactly the same, right? So we can just, again, close it out. And this is a very nice option. Like, of course, it's not a solution for a Photoshop, right? But it is nice if you have a quick project, you have 20, let's say, images, right? And you don't want to deal with them one by one. So you can do it this way, right? So what happens is that right now what I would need to do is, obviously, I'm going to save this. And my live preview is still going to be a little bit stuck. Right, so if I refresh, you can see that right now both images are exactly the same. Right, now what happens is over here, if the screen is going to be smaller, right, they're not obviously going to be able to fit, right? But in general, they're actually going to be in line, right? You can see side by side and exactly the same. So this is the option how we can actually do it in the Mac, or obviously this is going to be also an option in the PC. And now let's talk about where we can get nice images, right? And not only nice, but we also need to remember something called copyright, right? Because it's nice to go over here to the Google and pick images, whatever you want. And I don't know about each and every specific image, right? But you cannot use everything willy-nilly how would you like, right? Now, you can use it for your own little projects, right? No big deal. But if you want something that you're already going to be selling or making money, this is actually going to be an issue, right? So you can obviously get sued, right? So obviously, Google is nice, right? Especially in the beginning, like very nice. Find images, whatever you would like. But the problem is eventually you're going to need something called that they're going to be a copyright free, right? Or you will just going to have to mention that where you got that image, right? But you're obviously not going to have to pay for anything, right? And over here, there's going to be a couple of sites that I just want to show you, right? So which ones I wish I would have known when I was beginning with HTML, right? First one would be Pexels, right? Over here, we can just search for the photo, right? Over here, we can say family, or let's say office, right? Or office over here. And if we press enter, right? So this is going to be all the office photos. Then over here, as always, we can go back to the search and keep searching. Then we have over here Unsplash. This is another one. This is another very, very good one. And again, they're very, very high quality in all of the ones that I'm showing you, but they're also for free. Right, so you can just download them and you can use them for your projects over here, right? So again, over here, you can see that I'm going to write office over here like this, and then we're going to have a office pictures, right? So this one takes a little bit longer to download, but again, right, really, really nice pictures. And the last one for now that I'm going to show you is gratisography. And this one is really cool because it has a very funky images, right? So here you can see that it's just going to take a little bit of time to download, right? But as you can see over here, right? So this is not going to be your typical images. This is going to be actually very, very interesting images, right? So if you have some kind of funky project, right, you can get these ones and actually add them, right? So what I want to show you in this video, that you have way more options than just a Google, right? So we have for sure these 3 sites, right? If I click over here that I would want to download, right, you can see that it's right now downloading, right? And I'm gonna go back over here, and I'm probably gonna have to go to my downloads, right? So downloads over here, and this is gonna be my little giraffe, right? So over here I'm gonna say that I would want to rename it, right? And I'm gonna say this is gonna be brick, right, which is gonna stand for brick wall. And I'm just gonna drag this sucker over here across over here like this, and now it is in my files, right? So over here you can see that it's wants multiple files. Block, no, we don't want it because we must have clicked it a few times, right? So over here I'm gonna make this smaller again, and we're gonna get the 3rd image, right? So which is gonna be brick. So I'm gonna write that this is gonna be img, right, which is gonna stand for our element and source, and we're gonna say this is gonna be brick over here like this. And obviously, since we need to keep things in order, right, we need to write alternative, and I'm gonna say this is gonna be a brick wall because I don't know how to spell giraffe anyway. So over here like this. And if we go back to our document, right, so now I can see that it's massive, right? So now obviously this would be the time where we're actually using the cropping, right? Or we can just use a width and height, right? So probably width in this case is going to be faster. So I'm just going to write over here width, and we're going to say for the giraffe is going to be like something like 50, right? So 50 over here. We're going to save this, right? And now you can see that it's tiny over here all the way on the right hand side. Now the next thing that I want to talk about is path to images. And let me show you what I mean. So over here you can see that right now we have 3 images, right? And again, everything is fine and dandy and world is great, right? The sun is shining. Now imagine again, you're going to have way more images, and not only images, you're going to have, let's say image is going to be for one section, then where you're going to have a project, right? Work projects. Then it's another one where it's going to be your team or something like this, right? So with humans or whatever. So basically what I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of images, right? And the actual common practice is actually creating a new folder, right? And over here, I'm just going to call them all images, right? So I'm going to say img, right? But then actually within this folder, we would still be creating the subfolders, right? Where again, there would be one for the sunsets and the other one for the oceans or something like that, right? So a bunch of different images. Now the problem with the brackets, right? We cannot just drag and drop them over here. What we would need to do is go back over here to the HTML, and you can see that this is going to be in my files, right? So I can select 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna drag them all, right? And you can see that I'm over here, for some reason I'm keep having problems over here with my touchpad, right? So now I have my images over here, but if I go back over here, now I can see that I have my paths, right? But what happens if I refresh, right? You can see that I lost any kind of images, right? And the reason why I don't have them, because the source is not anymore here, right? Because remember, we were targeting the actual folder where we at, right? But once we refresh, they actually disappear, right? So what we would need to do over here, and for the first one, I'm just going to delete this, right? Let's imagine that I have a fresh image, right? And over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type I, and you can see that brackets is offering me, right? So do you want this folder or do you want index.html? So I'm going to press img, and now I have an option of brick, funny, of funny too, right? So if I click brick, now I can see how to find this one, right? And what happens is that this is like a path, right? Not like a path. This is actually is the path, right? So what I'm saying is, hey, listen, go to this img and find me a brick, right? It's not anymore in my folder over here, right? So what I would need to do is obviously for these ones, right? The same thing. I'm just adding that it is located img, right? And where to find it. Now this is funny too. So over here, let's change this one to funny over here. And now I have 3 of them, right? Now, obviously, if within this folder I would have one more folder, right, I would do the same thing. I would have the img, right? Here would be the name, right? Name of the folder. So I'm just going to write name, and then over here, this is going to be the image, right? Now, obviously, I don't have the folder, so therefore the image is not showing because it's not located there, right? But if I delete this one over here, now you can see that I have my image back. And this is how we use a path to images to actually display the image. And next, we're going to look at how we can create a fig caption. And if you don't know what is fig caption, then basically it would be text that would be related to our image, right? So here, the first thing that we would need to do is create a figure element. So how do we create a figure element, right? So by now you should already be very, very familiar what we're doing, right? We have our opening tag, right? And with figure, right? So this is the element that we need. So we press over here, and the brackets is going to right away close it for us, right? If we press over here, if we just close it out, right? So this is going to be our figure, and then within the figure we would be placing the image, right? So I'm going to go with the brick, right? So again, we already know that this is going to be img. This is going to be the element, then it's going to be source over here like this. And for the source, we're going to go actually to the images, and over here you can see that this is going to be our brick, right? And then we're going to have a alternative, and we're just going to say that this is going to be brick wall over here like this. And then once we have the image, you can see this blue one over around it, right? So this actually is a figure, right? So this figure element over here. Now what we would want to do over here is we're going to have a fig captioning, which is going to be the text. So if I have a fig caption over here, and then I go ahead and let's say I'm going to write that this is going to be, this is funny brick wall, right? So you can see that it's attached, well, in a sense, it is attached right to the image, right? So you can see that this kind of explains about an image. And this is how we can create a figure element in HTML and fig captioning, which would be explaining text about it. So now that we are experts in HTML, let's start using our knowledge and start building our portfolio website, right? So over here, you can see that I have index.html, right? But over here, I'm going to say this is going to be new file, and I'm going to say that this is going to be website HTML, right? So website over here HTML, and once I have that over here, we're going to create a new skeleton, right? So this is the wrong one. Over here, we're going to go with the basic skeleton over here like this, and once we have it over here, we're just going to write that this language is going to be English, right? And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be portfolio website, folio website. And for the website, the first thing that we need to do is actually go and grab some images, right? So here I'm going to go to Google, right? So this is going to be the page, but I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to say that I would want a Udemy image over here. I'm going to say over here Udemy, and I'm going to go to images, and over here I'm going to grab this guy. So I'm going to just save this, save as, and I'm going to say this is going to be Udemy over here, and I'm going to save it in my images right now. Save it like this. And then we're going to grab also a YouTube logo, right? So I'm going to go back, and over here I'm going to say YouTube over here. And again, we're going to find for images where it is. YouTube videos, all images over here. And then we have images, right? So again, let's grab this button, right? So let's go over here and let's say that we're going to save the image. And you know what? No, let's grab this one. This one looks a little bit better, and it's also from Pixabay, right? So we're going to go over here, and we're going to go that this is going to be here, and we're going to say this is going to be YouTube over here. Save over here like this. Now that we have saved both of our images, let's go ahead and let's start placing them, right? And the first thing that I'm going to say that this is going to be a coding portfolio of Coding Addict, right? So I'm going to say H1, right? And I'm going to say this is going to be portfolio of Coding Addict over here. Then the next thing that I would want to do is actually start placing the images, right? So I'm going to say that this is going to be heading 2, and I'm going to say where you can find me over here, where you can find me over here like this. And then we're going to place the image, right? And the first one we're going to place is Udemy. So over here, I'm going to say this is going to be image and source. And now again, I would need to go to actual folder, right? So I'm going to go to images, and I'm going to find where is my Udemy, and we're just going to have a alternative. I'm going to say Udemy over here like this. And now you can see that I have my Udemy logo, right? So over here, I'm going to write the heading, let's say 3, and I'm going to call this Udemy, right? And then we're going to have a paragraph about Udemy, right? So we can find, actually, we can go to Wikipedia. Over here, we can say Wikipedia, wiki. Well, not over here like this, but let's say wiki. And when we have the Wikipedia, let's search over here. Let's say Udemy, and let's see what they have. And over here, let's just grab this first paragraph. This is going to be explanation about Udemy, right? So we're going to go back and we're going to paste this over here, right? So now we have the Udemy, and now we would want a YouTube, right? So I'm going to save this over here, and I'm going to say that I would want a image, right? Again, so this is going to be for the YouTube. And over here, let's just place a few line breaks. Over here like this, a few line breaks. And then once we have that, let's grab an image, right? So again, I'm going to say this is going to be a image and source, right? So for the images in the source, we're going to grab a YouTube. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say alternative is going to be YouTube. Over here like this. And now we have a YouTube logo, right? And again, heading 3, we're going to write, and we're going to say this is going to be YouTube. Right, and those are the places basically where you can find the content of Coding Addict, right? So we're going to save it over here, and we're going to go over here, and we're going to write that instead of Udemy, this is going to be YouTube over here. And again, let's grab this first paragraph over here, right? So this is going to be our first paragraph, and let's copy this guy. And over here, we're going to create a paragraph. We're going to say this is going to be paragraph, copy and paste, right? And now we have the paragraph about Udemy, right? Now that we have a portfolio and over here, Coding Addict, I would want to add a picture, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over here to a Wikipedia, but we're going to go to Google. And over here, I'm going to write Coding Addict over here, right? And once we write the Coding Addict, you can see over here, this is going to be the YouTube, but what we would want is actually images, right? And I'm going to click on this image, right? And I'm going to click on this guy. And over here, what I would want to do is remember how we can actually get only the address, right? So I'm just going to say copy image address. Then we're going to head back over here. And I'm going to say that this is going to be image, or here source, right? And what would be in the source, we're actually going to copy and paste that address, right? So now we have our image over here like this. And then we close it. And here I'm going to write alt, right? And I'm going to say this is going to be Coding Addict over here like this, right? And now that we have this, we can actually go ahead and look at our file, how it looks like if we're actually opening the exact website HTML. So I'm going to head back over here. I'm going to go to our folder, and if we go to website, right? So this is going to be our portfolio, right? So for now we have portfolio, Coding Addict. This is going to be the picture. And then over here, you can see that these are where you can find me, Udemy. And over here, this is going to be the YouTube. And now that we are done with our first part of our website project, I want to talk about two things, right? I want to talk about comments and I want to talk about line breaks, right? So the first things first, remember, like I was telling you, right? So that there is HTML is actually Whitespace collapsing, right? Meaning that I can add over here as many returns as I want, right? So you can see on the left-hand side, it's going to look like this. And in my document, it's going to look like this, right? As you can see, it doesn't matter, right? However, if we would want a line breaks, right? If we would want to create spaces, now there's going to be a couple of options, right? First, we're going to be doing that in a CSS, right? That's going to be our main way how to do it, right? But let's say, however, if you would want to do it in HTML, what we can do is we can create an element, right? Over here, a line break element, right? Very straightforward, very, easy, right? Now, there's a couple of ways you can write it like this, or you can write it without it, right? It's still going to be within the brackets, right? If you write it over here, it actually does it without it, right? But proper way is doing it like this, right? So this would be the line break. Like either way, it's going to be the same, right? So this is going to be the line break. And as you can see, this one is image, right? It's a little bit moving now, right? So what we would do is, let's say we're going to add a few more, right? So now we have 4 of them. And let's say we're going to add the line breaks in between these paragraphs, right? So we know that this paragraph with the heading is with this image, right? What we're going to do is we're going to copy this one more time, right? Copy and paste it over here. So I'm going to grab these guys over here. I'm going to find where is my end of my paragraph, right? And over here, and maybe let's copy and paste 4 more, right? So something like this, right? So you know what, that's a little bit too much. So let's do cut, right? So this is going to be better. Then we find the end of this paragraph, again, copy and paste it, and now we have it, right? And this is just very, very easy way how we can actually do this, right? So we'll save this over here. And then one more thing that I want to talk about is the comments, right? So there's going to be, when there's going to be a large project, right? So this one is already slowly becoming, you know, not large, but you can see that right now, okay, well, now we have 3 paragraphs, right? Then we have images, then we have something else, right? And what we would want to do is start using the comments, right? So let's say over here, I can just write that this is going to be, let's say, title, right? And how do we create comments in HTML? Over here, comments, and let's say over here you're going to see the toggle line comment, right? And you can see this is, they're giving us right away a shortcut, right? So what we're going to do over here, I'm going to press command and / right? And you can see that I have a comment, right? And over here I can write I am comment, right? And you can see that it's not showing up in my browser, right? So here I can write whatever I would want to do, right? And it's still going to be only for me and for me to read later on, right? And again, for tiny projects like this, of course, it's no big deal, right? But if your project is going to get bigger, and not only in HTML, once you're going to be working with CSS or JavaScript, right, you're going to need the comments. So let's say 2 weeks from now when you're coming back and you're like thinking, well, why did I put this image over here with this section, and what is this section even about, right? You can always say, let's say over here, I'm going to create another comment, and I'm going to say this is going to be coffee, right? Coffee history paragraph, right? Now in a real project, you probably wouldn't be commenting out a over here paragraph, right? But you would be commenting out the sections, right? So let's say that if you have for the actual paragraph, right? So let's say over here, we're going to copy and paste this guy, right? So let's just get the whole thing. And let's say cut over here, right? And for the second one, right? So we're going to paste this. And over here, we're going to say this is going to be coffee shops in the world, right? Best coffee shops, right? So then if we're scrolling through the document, right, we know which paragraph it is, right? Because then we're going to be going to main CSS, the CSS folder, right, or file, and then we're going to be applying the styles, and we want to know where we're targeting. So I'm going to say best coffee shops, right? And then again, week from now, month from now, right? As we're scrolling through the document, we know what this section is about, right? So this is the coffee shop section, and obviously we can make the same comment over here that this is the coffee history, and this is funny things about coffee, right? And that's about comments. Now, there's one more thing about comments that if we go over here, right, you can see that it's not showing on the page, right? Now, what we can also do over here, look at the funny thing, right? So what if we take this guy over here, and let's say I'm going to cut, right? And I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to copy and paste this, right? So let's see what happens, right? All this actually turns gray. Now, if we go back to our folder, right, you can see we have 1, 2, over here 2, right? So the image is gone, right? Let me refresh over here because they actually are in different size, right, over here. And now we have only 2 images, right? And what happened is I actually commented out this whole piece of code, right? So if I go back over here, and if I'm gonna comment this one out over here, now you can see that once I refresh the page, right, if I go back over here, this is gonna be the comment that I created, and right now I don't have a comment anymore, and the picture is back, right? So that's another thing that we can do if we want to test some kind of code out, right? And that would be most likely in the cases of if you're working with JavaScript, right? If you want to test something out, then you could actually comment this one out, right? So, and again, for the brackets, we have a couple of options. We have over here where we find the toggle line comment, or you can see they have toggle block comment, or we can go with a shortcut. And what's going to happen is that in the brackets, let's say, I'm going to say that this is the main comment, right? And what happens in the brackets, once I press command and / in this line, you can see the whole thing was done, right? So I could do 2 ways. I can create a comment and then write, or I can just toggle the comment. Now that we have covered basics of HTML, let's go ahead and explore the brackets text editor in a little bit bigger detail, right? So over here you can see that on the left side, like I said, these are the working files over here on the top, and this is the actual folder where we're working on, right? So they obviously, if we click over here, this X, right, this is not going to be anymore a working file, right? And if we double click over here, you can see it goes back to the working file, right? Now over here we have an option of actually split and no split, right? So if we click this one over here, right, you can see over here this is no split, right? But if we go over here, this is going to be vertical split, right? So we have on the left side right now 2 of these, right? But if I just drag over here this guy to the right, you can see that I have my index HTML where we have been working all the time, right? And over here this is going to be the website HTML, right? Now the things that I'm going to be showing you right now about the brackets, few things. Actually, now you're going to be like, well, why do I need this right now, right? Because mostly you're going to be using this with CSS, not in HTML. But I just want to show you the things what brackets can do. So let's say a week from now, a month from now, when you're progressing with CSS, you're like, hey, listen, that weird dude was saying that, oh, we can do something like this. So let me just go back and check it out, right? So again, some things you'll be like, well, I don't need this right now. And that's true. But when you're going to need them, you're going to remember that we actually talked about them. Now, this is going to be the left side, right? So we have horizontal split, vertical split, and no split, right? So let's go back to the no split over here, and let's just get rid of this website, right? And now we have index HTML. Now, another thing, what we can do is you can see over here with the files, we can go back and show in Finder, right? We have new file, folder, rename, delete, and show in Finder. And what's really cool about show and finder, right? Remember that brackets couldn't move the files actually in the folders, right? So over here, if it finds it in a folder, then we can do all the operations we need to do. And then we can right away go back to brackets, right? Now on the right hand side over here, this is going to be our live preview. And this is going to be an extension manager. And in extension manager, I'm going to go in further detail in the next video. So let's just leave it like it is. You probably don't have these icons, and I'm going to show you where I got the icons from. But over here in the bottom, this is the indent, right? So you can see that it indents 2 spaces, right? And here, this guy we can change. We can change the tab size, and here we can change the value, right, to something like 4, right? And now the indentation is going to be actually 4 tabs. Now I'm going to leave the 2 spaces like I had before. Now over here, this is going to be the HTML. This pretty much says that this is going to be HTML file, right? And you can see what kind of options we have, right? And there's a bunch of them. We have JavaScript, JSON, and you name it, pretty much everything in there, right? Now this is going to be over here it for our preview, right? This is the important stuff. And then let's go over here, right, where we have the files. So here you can see that this is pretty typical for a program, right? So here, this is going to be new file, open folder, open recent, right? And those open folder and open recent, remember this one, right? Where we had a open folder, which was a little bit better because it showed us actually the folders that we have worked on before, right? So if we go back over here to the file, you can see that save as, again, live preview, the same one is over there, right? And extension manager, right? Which is exactly as this guy, right? So they're both equal. Now over here, if we go to an edit, this is going to be how we're working with the file, right? Because later on, you're going to want to use less and less mouse and actually everything to do with keyboards, right? And with the keyboard shortcuts, right? And again, this is indent, unindent, duplicate. And I'm not going to go over each and one of them, right? But just remember this toggle line comment over here. And over here, this is going to be show code hints. And what is show code hints, right? And you can see that it says over here that this is going to be the keyboard shortcut, right? And what we do over here is, let's say that, remember how we were when we were typing, right? So let's say I write over here, the moment I open up a opening bracket, you can see that I'm giving shortcuts, right? But if I start typing, right, you can see that first of all they disappear, right? Because obviously there is no element that would actually relate to anything like this, right? But even if I delete back to D, right, or here change it to F, which would be a element, right, you can see my whole code hints have actually disappeared. Now if I press the shortcut, right, the code hints shortcut, you could see back again, right, I have field set, fig caption, and figure, right? So this is how we can get a code hints back if we have done some work and we have deleted and we want quickly to have the code hints, right? Now over here, this is going to be the beautify, which is going to be brackets extension, again, which we're going to go over in the next video. But for the edit, this is going to be it, right? So let's delete this. Now that we're done with edit, let's check out find, right? And find is very useful, again, once we're going to start working with very, very long files, right? So here, the first one would be find, right? So you can see over here, this is going to be the shortcut, but we're not going to be using shortcuts. We're just going to be clicking over here, right? So you can see that over here, if I would type, let's say H3, right? So heading 3, right? So here you can see that it right away finds 1 out of 6, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, right? So we have 6 of them, right? And again, for the long file, this would be very, very useful that we don't need to, let's say, find some type of heading that has some kind of text, right? What is also useful that if we have find, we can also use a find and replace, right? So if we go back over here, replace, and over here you can see that we have a new one, right? Which pretty much says, well, what we would want to replace it with, right? Let's say that I want to replace it with heading 4, right? And you can see over here, replace and replace all, right? And now all of them became heading 4 instead, right? So let's change it back over here. Let's go into find and replace. And we're going to say that we would want to replace a heading 4, right? And you can see that it was red because obviously there were no heading 3s anymore, right? I'm going to say, let's say I'm going to replace it with heading 3, right? And replace all. And again, it goes back to heading 3, right? So this is going to be about find. Then we have the view. And the view over here is just pretty much helps you with your customization, right? So here we can say hide sidebar, right? So you can see that the sidebar is gone, right? Again, there's going to be a shortcut, but we're just going to be using the files right now. Over here, this is going to be no distractions, right? So everything disappears, right? So if I go back over here and I'm going to say no distractions, right? So now I can see that everything is going to be, again, full view, right? And if we go back and let's say for view, we have a highlight active line, right? So what we can do as we're working, right? You can see that it actually highlights the active line that we're working on. And that is a very, very neat feature. Now, another thing is over here, this is the line numbers and word wrap, right? So both of them, as you can see, they're pre-default, right? So right away, as the brackets start working, you can see that if you don't like them, right? If you don't like any of them, right? You can unclick it, right? And there is going to be no line numbers, right? But I would suggest keeping the line numbers because they actually really help you working, right? So once we have the view, then we have over here word wrap and line numbers, right? Then we have a navigate, and then we have, this is going to be an extension that we're not going to talk about right now. And the next video, we're going to explore a brackets extensions in a little bit more detail. So let's talk about brackets extensions. Now, you get the brackets, right? Like the way they are, right? You download them, you install them, and everything is working, right? But there's going to be some things that you want to actually add to the brackets, right? So you just want to actually customize them a little bit more, right? You want to add some extra features. And for that, brackets has something called brackets extensions, right? So you see over here, this little box, right? Over here, if we click it, right? And it's starting to open, right? And over here, as you can see that we have options, right? We have available, we have themes, we have installed, and we have default, right? So let's go over here. And let's first of all understand what is themes and what is available, right? So themes is going to be over here with the way the brackets looks, right? So if I go back over here and if I close this guy over here, if we go back to the view, right, you saw over here these themes, and this is exactly the same. And right now we're working with a default themes, right? And in the brackets extension manager, there's actually going to be a custom themes, right? So this is going to come default, right? So what you have probably right now is something like this, right? So this is going to be your view. And if we go back over here, this is going to be the dark one, right? And obviously here we can actually customize it a little bit more, right? So this is the basic setup, either dark or either light, right? But if we go back over here in the brackets extension manager, we can actually get as many themes as we want, right? So we just need to wait a little bit, again, until it downloads, right? And if we go back over here to the themes, I mean, you can really explore your heart out, right? So there's going to be all kinds of, the only thing I was just actually going back, right? And actually looking at it, what it is, right? And what it does. So over here, you can see that this is going to be dark revolution, right? So just go ahead and check it out what the actual theme looks like, right? Otherwise, you're just going to keep downloading something that you don't like, right? So this is about themes. Then we have another extensions, right? And those extensions are actually helpful with your work, right? Not just with the visual, how the brackets would look like, right? And the first one would be the one that I have actually installed, right? Which would be Beautify. So if I go back over here, you can see that I have Beautify, right? And it says over here actually that I need to update it, right? And what Beautify does, but showing Beautify on this small file is going to be pretty hard. So let's go back to website HTML, right? And over here, if you can say that if I'm going to start making some kind of spaces, right, which is obviously we're not going to be able to see in our web page, right, but in our document, right? So let's say that we're starting to do something like this, right? And eventually, obviously, again, with a big document, this is not going to make a lot of sense, right? So if we select the whole document and just press save, when we have Beautify, you can see what happened, right? It placed it again, everything nicely, right? And again, once we install this extension, it's actually going to be over here, right? So Beautify, and we have Beautify and save. So every time it's going to save the document, it's actually going to do it for you, right? So that's the Beautify extension. Then over here, if we go back to Extension Manager, right? And let's just actually see what kind of things I have downloaded, right? All of them. And you can see it with the installed, right? I have Beautify, I have Emmet over here, and I have the HTML skeleton and indent guides, right? So these are the ones that I'm using so far, right, for this small document. And HTML element, right, skeleton, sorry, is the one that we're actually can add the elements. So only thing you would need to do is go to available over here, and let's type over here that this is going to be HTML skeleton, right? So this is the starter template, bootstrap skeleton, HTML skeleton, right? And you can see over here that I already installed, right? But you're going to be able to find a lot of interesting brackets extensions that actually help you with your work, right? So the only thing is you need to do is go over here, actually search for them, and then once you're going to install them, actually you can see that they're going to appear over here, right? So I might as well press over here this update, right? And now it's actually updated. We can close it over here, and you can see over here it says that once we upload or once we create a new one, right, it's going to say to us, well, update extensions and reload, right? So make sure that all your files are actually saved before you start working with some kind of extension, right? Because you don't want to actually lose your. And now that we're familiar with brackets, let's dive back into HTML. And this video, we're going to look at sub and sub elements, right? So let's say over here, I'm going to create a heading 1, right? And I'm going to say 99, right? So let's say $99, right? So this would be the price or something, right? But if I go back over here and if I'm going to write sub, right, over here, and I'm going to say this is going to be dollars, you can see that it placed it actually right here, right on the top of the text. And over here, we're going to say sub, right? And for the sub, we're going to say, let's say 0.99, right? So you can see that I created over here with these two elements, right? So one is going to be placing whatever we're placing inside this element, right, on the top over here, and the sub is going to be in the bottom, right? And obviously once you're going to learn CSS, you're going to see how we can style it even better, right? So this is just the basic styling if you need to, right, to use these elements, sub. And now let's talk about bold, italic, strong, and emphasized elements in HTML. So over here, if I'm going to have a paragraph, and I'm going to say that the paragraph is going to say hello there, right, over here like this, there, and I'm going to say over here that I would say I am italic, right? But I'm going to place this in a I tag over here. I'm going to say I am italic, right? And one more thing about brackets in general, right? If you want to zoom in, you actually press Command plus, right? So you can see how we're going to be zooming in. And over here, it's the same with the document, right? You can see we can zoom in over here and zoom back, right? So it's not actually a brackets thing, but the brackets are using it, right? You can see that over here I'm doing this in a browser, which is for the Mac, right? So they're both the same, just as a side note. Now over here you can see that I have hello there, right? And this is actually italic, right? So I want to actually zoom in over here, right? Hello there, I'm italic. Now if I go over here and change the I to B, over here like this, right, closing opening tags, right, hello there, I'm actually not italic, I'm going to say I'm bold, right? Now again, these things you're most likely going to be doing with CSS, right? You're not going to be going everywhere and every element or every text that you want to add some type of styling, right? You're not going to jump around. That's the whole point of CSS. But in just some cases, maybe if you ever need it, you can use it like this. Now, I also want to show you two more, right? Which you're going to probably say, well, there's something wrong with this, right? So over here, if I can have another paragraph, right? If I go down and let's say over here that I'm going to say this is going to be EM, right, which stands for emphasized, and I'm going to change this one to EM, right? And over here I'm going to say that this is not going to be bold, right? Let's just delete this for now. Over here, and I'm going to say this is going to be strong, right? And what you're going to say is, well, wait a minute, what is the difference? Well, the difference actually is in the screen readers, that if over here, let's just create some line breaks, right? So it's a little bit better for us to see over here like this. What happens is that when a screen reader reads it, right, it doesn't see this as any different, right? So it's just going to read it like a regular text. However, as it's reading over here, it's actually going to emphasize over here or actually pronounce it strong, right? So that's the difference. So actually, if you ever have a case, you rather want to go with these ones, with EM and strong, because it makes much more sense that the screen reader can actually. And now let's explore special characters in HTML. And there's actually two uses for special characters. One would be actually getting the character that we cannot get with a keyboard. And the other one would be actually displaying some type of syntax, HTML syntax, that the text editor wouldn't think that we're actually trying to create a element, right? So let's do with the first one. Let's get a special character that we cannot get with the keyboard. So we're going to go over here and we're going to create a paragraph, right? And we're going to imagine that, let's say that this is going to be a footer paragraph, right? And remember over here in the footer, right, when you go visit websites, right, you have seen the copyright, right? Over here, 2017, right, all rights reserved, or something like that along those lines, right? But you can see over here, we don't have this copyright symbol, right? So what we can do is, if we go over here and we just press ampersand over here like this, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to say this is going to be copy. And over here, you can see that this is going to be the symbol, right? Now, what happens is that brackets is going to give you tons and tons of hints, right? So over here, if I go to copy, right, now I can see that I have my copy trademark over here like this. Now, obviously, there's going to be many of them, many of these symbols. So it's better if you're going to go and actually find it in Google. There's tons of pages, resources where you actually find, if you're looking for some kind of symbol, it's going to be easier to find what that symbol actually is, and then just use brackets to actually display it instead of looking through those code hints, right? The code hints are helpful. However, there's so many of these elements that you're going to spend a lot of time if you're just going to be searching for them, right? And the second case would be, let's say if we have a paragraph, right? I'm going to say hello there, right? Now, what's going to happen if I'm going to go back over here and if I'm going to place a left angle bracket, right? If I'm just going to keep on typing, right? So you can see right now that it's actually saying, well, listen, there's something wrong. You started over here this angle bracket, right? But you didn't finish it. But actually, let's say that I wanted this angle bracket over here. Now, what we can do and what we will do and have to do is go to ampersand and press LT, right? And you can see over here, this is going to be left angle bracket, right? So now we can use these elements, right, actually in our text without making our browser text editor angry that we're actually not doing something proper. And next, let's look at a block quote element in HTML. So over here, let's say that we're going to be creating some kind of text and we would want to form it as a block quote, right? So here you can see that I copy and paste my block quote, right? Which says too much coffee in Gatorade. It's hell of a mix. If you're ever tired in the morning, just try that mix and tell me what you think, right? And we're just going to say that this would be said by somebody, right? So here I'm going to say this is going to be block quote, right? And you can see that I'm just going to close it right away. And I'm going to grab this guy over here and we're just going to cut this out over here and copy and paste it, right? And you can see that this is how it's going to look if it's placed in a block quote, right? Now, obviously, we can try it the same way with a simple paragraph, right? And you can see that this is going to be like a normal paragraph, right? And this is going to be like a normal block quote. And again, we're going to apply more styles with CSS, but just in general, this gives you a nice indentation right away. So, and actually we know that this is going to be actual block. Now that we have learned text elements, it's time to go ahead and start applying them to our website. So here I go, we're gonna go back to a website HTML, right? And over here on the top, right underneath the coding addict, right in between the picture, I'm gonna say that this is gonna be a block quote over here like this. Then in the bottom of the block quote, I'm gonna say this is gonna be a paragraph. And over here, I'm gonna say this is gonna be EM for italic over here like this. And then I'm gonna say that this is gonna be said over here like this. And I'm gonna use all capital letters, said over here like this. As you can see, for some reason, I'm not doing that right. Okay, said by everyone, one over here. And within the block quote, we're gonna have a strong tag over here like this. I'm gonna write strong. And within the strong, we're gonna say that this is gonna be coding addict. Addict provides, over here we're gonna write provides. And we're gonna say best, over here tutorials and videos and courses over here. And we're gonna say about HTML, CSS. Over here we're gonna say Bootstrap. And then we're gonna say that this is gonna be also JavaScript. Over here jQuery. And then we're gonna have a Git. And then after Git, we're gonna say everything coding related. Everything coding related. Over here like this. So now we have our block quote. And over here we have said by everyone. And over here when we have a coding addict, right? We're gonna say this is gonna be something like heading 3. Over here like this. And within the heading 3, we're gonna have a sub, right? So we're gonna say coding addict is the best over here. And what we're gonna do is gonna copy and paste this, right? So we'll have our coding addict is the best. So we're gonna grab this guy over here and copy and paste this. And over here we're gonna copy and paste this. And then we're gonna have a sub, right? So we're gonna have a sub that we're gonna do the same thing, right? So copy and paste this. And maybe over here, we can say that a coding addict is the best, right? And then we'll see how it looks on a bigger page, right? So now we have this one, and this one, right? Well, it doesn't make much sense, but at least now we know how to work with a sub and sub elements over here like this, right? And next, let's talk about links in HTML. And there's actually 3 types of links. First, we would have an external link, which would go to external web page. Then we have internal, which would actually to go to our second web page, right? Or third or fourth or whatever. Basically the web page that we created. If I would have a website 1 over here, right? Instead of just one website, then we were gonna create the links actually to go to our second website, right? So if we have a website, right? And this would be about page, and then there's another page, and we're gonna be creating them. So I'm not gonna go into too much detail right now. And the third one is gonna be the actual links around our own page, right? Just staying in the same page, but actually going to different places in our document. But we're going to start with external links, right? And obviously for the link, as we already know, we would need to create an element. And the element would start with a, right? And over here, I'm just going to write what it is, right? Google, right? So let's start with the Google. Now the problem over here, you can see that I'm clicking and nothing is happening, right? Because this link is another element that would need an attribute, right? And the attribute would be an href over here like this. And here we would need to specifically set what kind of address, right? And you can see that right away it gives us the website and HTML, right? So these are the 2 documents. Now we don't want to stay over here in our folder. We actually want to go externally. So I'm going to write over here HTTP over here like this, then a colon, all right, and then 2 forward slashes, and I'm going to say www.google over here.com, right? And what I'm going to do over here, I can right away click it, and I'm going to go to Google. Now the problem with a live preview is, or in general, you wouldn't want actually somebody leaving your website, right? So with the live preview, it's just going to go away, and then it's going to be a little bit messy to come back. But also with your website, you would want whoever is visiting opening in a new link, right? But then they can always come back to your site. So we would need to add another attribute, which is going to be target. And we're going to say blank over here, right? You can see that self parent up. And we're going to go with the blank, right? So here, if we save this over here like this, and now if I click it over here, you can see that I opened in the Google, right? So But once I close the page over here, right, I still stay in my own page, right? So that's the neat thing about this target blank. Now, obviously, the name over here doesn't mean anything, right? Or here I couldn't written monkeys, right? And it's still going to go to Google. But because the most important part over here is the address, right? Not the actual name. And in later videos, we're going to look at how we can actually place an image here, and the image would serve as a link. And now let's look how we can create internal links, not external, right? So over here, you can see that we have two pages, right? So one is going to be website, the other one is index.html. And obviously, we can create over here 50, 70, whatever the amount of pages that we would want, right? So what I can do over here in the index.html, I'm going to write this is going to be link, right? And I'm going to go with href, right? And over here right away it tells me where do you want to go, right? I'm going to go to the website HTML, right? And again, I don't need to put a /, right? Because you can see that they're in the same folder, right? So I don't need to specifically say the other folder over here, right? So it's the same folder, so I just write website HTML. And over here, again, we're going to use the target over here, and we're going to say blank, right? Over here like this. And over here, we're going to say go to, right, website HTML. Website over here HTML, right? And we can do is we can save this one over here. And once we click on the live preview, right, we can see that we're going to the website, right? And we can actually close it out over here. And now let's look at how we can create the links that would be actually in the same page, right? So let's imagine over here, I'm just going to say this is going to be a link, right? And I'm going to give it an href, right? And for now, I'm just going to leave it blank because we're going to still work on it, right? And over here, I'm just going to say this is going to be home, right? And we're just going to copy and paste this, right? This is going to be an about, right? And over here, we're going to say this is going to be, I don't know, work, right? So 3 links, right? Everything is nice and dandy, right? Over here, we're going to say this is going to be a paragraph, and we're just going to make this a dummy text, right? This is, I don't know, about or home paragraph, right? Paragraph over here like this. And then we're going to copy and paste this, right? We're going to copy and paste this 1, 2, right? And we're going to leave it like the way it is. But this is over here. We're going to say this is going to be an about. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be a work, right? So 3 of them, right? And what I'm going to do over here, I'm actually going to place a line break, right? I'm going to place a line break in between, and also in between over here, and in between over here, right? So we're going to pretty much make it look like that. We're going to imagine that what if these paragraphs would be spread out, like, right? What if we would have a very, very long page, right? So if I keep, oh, okay, not the wrong way over here, right? If I copy this whole thing, right, the tag, you can see that I'm pushing the text down, right? So first one, then we're going to go over here, and then we're going to do some more copying, right, with the line breaks, and over here the last one, right? So over here like this. And what if we would want to do is over here, you can see that we are on the top, right? What if we would want whoever is visiting the web page, right, go on a link, right away, click it, right? And it's actually going to be exactly where we want it to be, right? So this is about the home paragraph, right? So this is going to be work. So let's go over here. This is going to be home. This is a about paragraph, right? So let's go over here. Let's just change it out. This is about paragraph. And then the last one is going to be work paragraph, right? This is work paragraph, right? What we can do over here is, let's start with the last one. If we add an attribute called ID, right? So if I write over here an ID, and I'm going to say this is work, right? So this is going to be the name of my ID, right? If I go back over here, and if I have work over here, right? And if I put a hashtag and write work, then actually what's going to happen is once I have the work, right, click it over here, you can see that I have work paragraph, right? So it scrolls right away down. And obviously later on, once we're going to learn, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but CSS and JavaScript and jQuery and everything that we can obviously have a smooth effect, right? So right now we're just pretty much jumping right away. And what we can do over here, we can actually have another one, right, that actually goes to the top. So if I'm going to go back over here, and if I'm going to say that this is going to be a href, right? So we're going to write href over here, and we're going to say this is going to be the top, right? And over here, we're going to say hashtag, and over here, top, right? And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be back to the top, right? Now what we would need over here is obviously something that has the this ID, right? So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be heading one over here like this. We're going to say heading 1, and I'm going to say that this is going to have an ID, that this is going to be top, right? So here I'm going to say that this I am top, right? So what happens is, let's say we're going to go over here, right? We scroll over here and we press over here back to the top, right? You can see that I'm back to the top, right? And let's add for this one, right? We remember that this was an about, so I'm going to say ID, and this is going to be about. So we can save this guy, and over here this is we're going to say this is going to be home. So ID home, right? And what we need over here is we can say that this is going to be hashtag home and hashtag about. And this is how we can navigate throughout our page, right? So over here, if I press home, right, you can see that I'm going to be in home. Then if I scroll back and I say about, right now we're going to go to an actually about, right, about section. Then if we want over here, we can just go back to the top, right? Then we have a work, right? So if we want to, we can go to the work, and you understand an idea. And we're actually, once we're going to be working with our next website, right, when we're going to be adding stuff to our website HTML, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be placing our links that actually scroll throughout the. And now let's look at a few other things that we can do with the links, right? So over here, again, we're going to create the link element just so we're actually getting used to it, how to create them. So href over here, and let's say that I would want a link, but I would want an empty one that technically works, right? So I'm going to say Google, but I wouldn't want actually people to go to Google, right? So one of my options over here is I can just press the hashtag, right? And we can create a dummy link, right? So it is clickable. You can see that something is happening, but it's not going anywhere, right? So it stays as it is, right? So this is the option if you're testing something, or let's say you want to try something out, right? And you don't want actually anybody to go anywhere, right? And over here, we can write that this is going to be Facebook, right? Over here. And then we can say this is going to be Twitter over here. And I mean, you understand the idea, right? So we can create as many as we want. And as we're clicking, nothing is happening, right? But it is displayed as a link, right? And another thing that we can do is actually use images as links, right? So here I'm going to say this is going to be a link, right? And I'm going to say href. And for now, we're just going to create a dummy link, but we can actually create it. You know what? No, let's create it with Google so you don't think that I'm just making this up. So here 2 // www google or here com, right? And over here, let's do the target blank again, right? So we're technically stay on our page. And over here, what we're going to do is we'll actually place an image, right? So over here, if I write a image, and remember we needed a source, right? src. And over here, we're going to go to images, and we're just going to pick an image, right? And we're going to go with, I think, the brick one, right? Or something like this, right? So now we have a brick one. And now this actually is a link, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to save this guy over here. And if we go back, right, you can see that as I'm hovering over the image, right, you can see that my cursor changes. If I click over here, see what happens, right? So we have untitled, right? And you can see that I messed it up over here. I have 3 T's, right? So let's save this, and over here it's going to be the same. So let's refresh, right? And now I can see that I have the Google, right? So this way we can create our links that also work as images, right? So maybe let's make it a little bit smaller, that image, so it's easier for us to see. Let's make it like 50, right? And again, you can see as I'm hovering, this is actually working as a link, right? So let's just press again, and you can see that we're going to go. And now let's look at other 2 very important HTML elements. And it's going to be lists, and it's going to be unordered and ordered. And first, let's look at the unordered ones, right? So over here, in order to create a unordered list, what we will need to type is ul unordered, right? And over here, we're going to close it, right? So we have opening tag and a closing tag. Now over here, what we're going to do, we're going to say this is going to be list item, right? So this is the syntax. We type li. And over here, we're going to say this is going to be home. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And over here, obviously, we can change some stuff around, right? So first, we can just delete this, right? Over here like this. We're just going to go ahead and delete all of them. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be an about section, right? So this is going to be something like work section. Then this is going to be contact. over here, then this is going to be portfolio, and over here we're going to say that this is going to be, I don't know, Facebook, right? Something like this. Let's change over here this one, it annoys me. And over here you can see that, right, we have a unordered list, right? So as we're tapping the list items, obviously they're going to be appearing over here, right? Now again, this is unstyled, we haven't applied any styles, so this is how it's going to look, right? But you can already see the similarity of what this actually resembles, right? And this does look like a navigation menu, right? And actually it is true that for unordered list, right, we are using actually to create our navs or nav bars or menus or whatever you want to call it, right? And now you know the syntax. And now that we know how to create a unordered list, let's look at how we can create an ordered list, right? So here I'm going to write that this is going to be a OL, right, which stands for ordered list, over here like this. And then over here we're going to again create a list item, and I'm going to say this is going to be bars, right? And then we're just going to copy and paste this, right? So then it's going to be clubs. Then we're going to have a train station, right? So things in a city, right? So train station over here, and whatever we have, right? So stores and gym, right? So you can see over here, right, the difference is that instead of unordered list, right, we have a OL, which stands for ordered list. And now that we know both of our list types, let's look at how we can combine them and actually use them with the links, right? And let's actually start with the links. So first of all, remember how I was telling you that we can use it for a nav bar, right? So over here, if I would write a UL, right? And then over here, I'm going to say this is going to be LI. And within an LI, I'm going to place a link. Over here, we're going to say href, and we're going to use a dummy link over here, and we're just going to say home, right? So what's going to happen is that now we're going to copy and paste this guy, 1, 2, 3, right? And over here, let's write work, right? And about, and over here, we're going to say this is going to be a portfolio, right? And you can see what happens is that if I save this, right, this is actually a link, right? And this is what I was talking about, that we use this unordered list with list items for our menus and nav bars, right? And another thing that we can use, we can actually combine them, right? So again, let's create a new one over here. I'm just not going to use the same ones. I'm not going to use the links. So I'm going to say this is going to be unordered list. Then we're going to have a list item over here, and we're going to say home, right? And again, we're going to copy and paste a few times, right? So let me just grab this guy, 1, 2, 3, right? And over here and about, and over here we're going to say this is going to be, I don't know, work, right? Work, and this is going to be, I don't know, store, right? But with the store, what we can do is we're going to go over here and we're going to create an ordered list, right? So over here, we're just going to say this is going to be an ordered list, right? And this is going to be list items. Over here like this, we're going to say list items. And over here, I'm going to say this is going to be apples, right? Then we're going to have bananas or whatever, onions, and I mean, things that would have in the store, right? And I'm not going to change this because it doesn't make sense for me to change the text. But what you're seeing right now is obviously whatever we place it, right? You can see that this is going to be as a additional list, right? Now what we can do, obviously we can just cut this one out, right? And place it where the about section is, right? Now it's not going to make much sense, right? Because it's going to be the items from the store right now. But I mean, you understand that right now, if I'm moving this unordered list around to the list items, you can see how I'm actually creating this height. Now that we have learned everything about links, it's actually time for us to apply them. All right, so over here again, we have our website HTML, and we would need to create some links, right? Some nav links. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to first create some pages, right? So I'm going to say that this is going to be about HTML. Then we're going to have a contact HTML, and then we're going to have a location HTML over here as well. Over here, location HTML, and then we're going to have a numbers HTML, right? So a new file, we're going to say numbers HTML, right? So now that we have all these pages, we can actually close them for now, right? We don't need them. We still need to place our links first. So let's go to the website, and over here, all the way on the top, we're going to have a unordered list over here like this, and then over here, we're going to place some list items, right? So list items first, and then over here, we're going to have an href, right? and the address is going to be pointing to the page, right? So over here, if this is going to be home, then we need to say this is going to be website HTML over here like this, and then we're going to write that this is going to be home, right? So this is going to be our main page, right? And what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste this, and we need to add the rest of the links, right? So let's get this whole thing, and 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And here, what we're going to do, we're going to say this is going to be about HTML over here like this, about HTML, and we're going to write over here about. Then over here, the next one is going to be a numbers over here, numbers HTML, and then over here we're going to also write numbers. Then we're going to have a location HTML over here like this, location HTML, and over here we're going to write location. And then after that, we're going to have a contact HTML, right? So that's going to be for contacting whoever is having the portfolio, right? So we're going to say over here contact. And again, if we click over here, nothing is going to happen because obviously, well, the pages are empty, right? And what we would want to do is add over here to all of them. We're going to say that we would want a target, right? And we're going to say blank over here like this. So then once we open the page, right, we're going to have a target blank over here. So then that way, to whoever is visiting our site still stays on the page, right? So I'm going to say copy this one over here, and we're going to copy and paste it everywhere, right? So all 5 of them over here. So all of them are going to be target blank, right? Over here like this. And now it's time for us to go ahead and actually place the links over here for the Udemy and actually for the YouTube. So first things first, let's go ahead and let's actually find some more images, right? So again, I'm going to go back to Google, and I'm going to say this is going to be Udemy over here like this. And what I'm going to do is again find images, and this time let's look for transparent images. And the thing with transparent images that obviously there's nothing on the back, right? So they're transparent, so they don't have right away some kind of background, right? But they're going to actually take the background that your page has. So over here I said Udemy transparent logo, right? And then you just basically look for them, right? So this one looks fine to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say save image as, and over here I'm going to say Udemy link, Udemy, and we're going to say link, right? So we're going to save this one, and then let's go ahead and let's actually add a YouTube link. So what I'm going to do is, again, we're going to say, instead of Udemy, we're going to say YouTube over here, transparent logo. And then over here, let's just find whatever it is, and let's just double check that it's transparent, right? So you can see over here these squares, that means that it is transparent. And what we're going to do is we're going to save image as over here, and we're going to say this is going to be a YouTube link over here. And we're going to save these guys over here. And then let's go back to our project. And now where's Udemy, right? So underneath the paragraph over here. So where it is, paragraph is right over here, right? And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be an href over here. And for now, let's just leave this one blank. We're going to add it a little bit later. And over here, we're going to place the actual image, and I'm going to say image and the source. And the source is going to be images over here, images. And then we're going to look for a Udemy link, right? So over here, we're going to say, where's Udemy link? And Udemy PNG, and where it is, Udemy link, right? So it's right over here, and we're going to say that this is going to be alternative, and we're going to Udemy link over here, right? So we can close this one out, right? And what we would want to do is obviously make it smaller, right? There seems to be a problem, right? Because even when we copy and pasted transparent, you can see it didn't come out that way. That's why it's always very good to actually go and double check. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to say Udemy transparent logo. And let's just check for sure that it's transparent, right? So now it is, and let's over here save it and actually override it, right? So we're going to save as, and we're going to say Udemy link over here, right? So now it's saving, and let's just check it out in images, what we have, and we have 2 of them, right? So one of them is going to be JPEG, and that's the one that we need. So we're going to go back to website HTML over here and find where it is Udemy link over here, JPEG. Right, and this is the PNG. So we need PNG. So only thing we need to do is over here we can change to PNG, right? but let's have a width and a height a little bit smaller because otherwise they're too big. So, right, so we're going to say width. I'm going to say width over here. And we're going to say that this is going to be something like 50 over here, small one. And we're going to say over here, click here to visit Udemy, right? Visit Udemy over here. And we can create a little bit of space, right? So now we have our link. And this is actually going to be together with an image, right? So image is the link, and over here the text is also the link, right? And what we can do is just get rid of that JPEG. We don't need that anymore over here. We can just delete this, right, over here. And then the next one would be YouTube, right? So we have the YouTube, and over here in the bottom, again, underneath where is the paragraph, we're going to say that this is going to be an href. Over here, again, we're just going to leave it blank for now. I'm going to put a hashtag over here like this. And what we're going to say that this is going to be visit YouTube, right? So over here, click here to visit YouTube. YouTube over here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have another image. So this is going to be the YouTube logo. So we're going to say that this is going to be source, right? And then we're going to find where is the logo, right? So YouTube logo, YouTube link over here like this. And then we'll have an alternative. And this is also going to be a YouTube link over here like this, we're going to say. And probably let's do it right away that we're going to have a width. And we're going to say it to 50, right? So over here like this one. And again, over here we have click to visit YouTube, right? So now that we have this, we need to actually find where we would be going, right? So let's go back to our Chrome and let's actually find where the link should be. Now that we are in a Chrome browser, over here, what I'm going to say is I'm going to open the new one. I'm going to say coding Addict. Over here we press, and then this is going to be the YouTube, right? So what we would need to do is go find where's the link, right? So this is going to be the channel that we want to link over here too, right? And then Amazing Gentleman is going to start speaking in a second. All right, so let me just shut him up a little bit. And over here, we're going to go back to our page. And since this is going to be for the YouTube, we're just going to click this link over here, right? So we can save this one. And then we're going to go for Udemy, right? So Udemy. And then we're going to find where is Udemy. Over here, we're going to write John. Over here, Smilga, right? So we type this over here, find where it is going right now. And obviously, again, we do the same thing. We just copy and paste the link, right? So over here you can see the courses that are available, right, for the Coding Addict. And we're going to go back over here and we're going to copy and paste this, right? So now that we have these two links, let's go ahead and let's look at how our website actually looks, right? So I can close these guys for now over here and we can just minimize this for now. And we're going to go to our folder and we're going to look at where's the website, right? So we double click again on a website. And over here like this, we just keep on opening, right? And we can see this is going to be our portfolio website, right? So links over here, about, number, probably numbers. So we would need to fix this: location, contact, portfolio, Coding Addict. This is going to be our sub and sub. Then this is going to be our block quote. And then we'll have the image and where you can find, right? So let's just check it out. Does it work, right? So it does go over here to the actual page. So what we can do over here, we would probably need to have another about blank because you can see that we actually left our page, right? So let's go back over here where we have it. And let's say for this href, let's add a target over here. And we're going to say blank, right? And the same we should do over here to the YouTube one, right? So we're going to say over here, copy and paste this. Let's go over here. Where's the actual link? Over here, and copy and paste this. Let's save it. Let's go back and let's check it out. Over here, does it work better? Right? And sure enough, over here, this actually opens in a new page, right? So that works for us. Close this one, and then over here we can say the same thing, right? Does it work over here? Yes, it does. So it actually goes back to YouTube. Now, what I would want to do is over here put a link back to the top, right? So all the way in the bottom, we're going to create a link back to the top. So we're going to go back over here. And before I do that, I actually would want another coding image over here. This one, right? But this time I'm going to actually save the image, right? So I'm going to go back over here to the Google. And we're going to say again, Coding Addict. Addict over here, and let's find where's the images. Where's the image? The image is over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save the image. Let's say save image as, and I'm going to say coding addict over here. Now once I have this, let's go back over here, back to the body, right? And all the way in the bottom of the body, we're going to have a link that's actually going to be going to the top. So the first thing that I'm going to say is this is going to be paragraph, and click below to go back to the top, right? So now we have the paragraph. Now we would want a link that is actually as an image, right? So I'm going to say href, and this is actually going to be href back to the top. And over here, I'm going to write that this is going to be the image, right? So I'm going to say image, and the source this time, we're going to have a local one, right? So we'll go back to images, then we're going to find where it is our coding addict, right? Over here. And once we have this, we just need to close this one over here. And then in theory, right, as we click over here, we should go back to the top. Now I'm going to go back to the top. Where is the portfolio? I'm just going to give it an ID, and I'm going to say this is going to be the top. All right, so let's test it out on the real page. So I'm going to close this one right now, right? We can refresh, and over here, if I click, right, and now it says the actual web page wasn't found, right? So let's go back over here, and let's see what happened, right? So we have our top over here, href, and this is going to be over here. What we would need to do is actually have the hashtag, right? So now we save this, and let's check it out one more time over here, and let's go to the website. And once we have actually refreshed, right, let's click, right, and now we're going back to the top. So now you can see how important is this one little hashtag, right? Otherwise, it's not going to be working. And now that we're done with this, let's actually go ahead and let's create our about page, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the about page, and before we do that, let's actually copy and paste some things, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy and paste everything, including the image, right, over here, and over here, including this heading too, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste those things. Copy and paste them over here with heading 2, and let's go back to a about page. So now that we're sitting in an about page, I'm just going to copy and paste this. Now the problem is that I'm actually missing two things, right? I'm actually missing the HTML tag, and I'm missing over here the body tag in the bottom, right? So if I'm going to have to go back over here, and we're going to say that we want to close the body, and you can see the brackets right away understands what we're missing, right? We just have a angle bracket and a forward slash. Now you can see that it closes, right? Now that everything works fine, over here we're gonna just add some stuff, right? So over here, I'm not gonna say this is gonna be portfolio, or you know what? No, over here we're just gonna write about me, right? So over here we're just gonna say about me, right? And then we're gonna place actually a few images over here. So let's go back. Instead, this time we're gonna go to pixels. Right, so we're going to go back to pixels.com, and we're going to get 3 images. And I'm going to say something with coding, right? And we're just going to get, I don't know, we're going to get this guy. And over here, we're going to say this is going to be save image as, and we're going to say this is going to be coding 1, over here like this. And then we're going to have a few more, right? So over here, we're going to say, I don't know, something like this. Save image as, we're going to say coding 2, and let's get the third guy, right? So let's have something like this over here, like this. We're going to say save image as, and we're going to say coding 3 over here like this. So now that we have 3 images, what we're going to say over here is we're going to have about, and let's say over here about me, right? And then we're going to have to place these 3 images, right? So I'm going to say image source over here, and I'm going to look for the images, and I'm going to say coding 1, right? So we're going to find where's coding 1. It's right here, over here, and you can see that we have a big image, right? And it's obviously going to look better actually on a big page, right? So if I go back over here and save this, this is actually going to look better once we actually work in our page. So I'm going to close this one. And over here, remember, we need to go to about page, right? And this is going to be our image, right? You can see that it's sitting over here, right? And if we really want, we can obviously make it smaller. As always, we could have over here write that this is going to be width, and let's say that width is going to be again like something like, I don't know, 100, 200 pixels, right? So 200 pixels is obviously going to be smaller, and it's not going to look as good on a bigger side as it looks on a smaller one, right? So obviously you can pick your own sizes, whatever you would like. I'm going to stick with this one, right? Just so you can see better on a smaller image. Once we have the image, let's actually add the text, right? So over here, I'm going to say this is going to be heading, let's say 3, and we're going to say coding. And then what we would need to do is actually copy and paste this, right? But before we do that, we actually would want technically add some kind of paragraph, right? Now that we have a paragraph, we technically should come up with some kind of information about me, right? So what we should be writing over here about us, right? But let me show you something really cool that actually is going to save you a lot of time. So if we go back to Google and I'm going to write lorem and I'm going to say ipsum over here like this, you can see that this is going to be generated. And this is technically a generator basically for a dummy text, right? So here it has all kinds of explanations and everything else, right? Or here like this, but then we can actually generate the actual text, right? So here you can see that paragraphs, words, bytes, lists, whatever, right? So here you can see that this is 5, right? So let's say this is going to be 1. And over here I'm going to click generate, and now you can see that I have 1 paragraph, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this guy over here, and we're going to go back to paragraph, copy and paste this, right? So this is going to be coding, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to have this image, and all the way everything to the paragraph is going to be 1, 2, right? Because we have 2 images. So over here we're going to say this is going to be, let's say 2, and this is going to be over here 3, right? And you can see over here the difference is that you can see that actual file is different, right? If we go back to images, this is going to be JPEG and this is going to be JPEG, right? So we're going to say GP over here like this, and then over here this is going to be JPEG, right? So there is subtle differences once in a while, right? So just keep that in mind. And now that we have this, we can actually just copy back to the top. Right, so over here you can see that we still have this top, and if we go back to website HTML and all the way in the bottom we have this link over here with the photo, and copy and paste this, and we're going to go back to about HTML, and over here very bottom we're just going to copy and paste this, and let's have a look at how it looks like, right? So we can close the lorem ipsum, right? Just remember this. You can get it from this page, or you can also get it from brackets extensions, but I mean page is always safe. So over here if we go back to portfolio, right, and I'm gonna refresh, right, now you can see that this is technically going to say portfolio website. Now again we're gonna go back and we're gonna fix this. Over here we're gonna write this is gonna be an about page over here. So not pages, page. So we save this and refresh, and this is going to be the about page. So what happens is this is our main page. We have home, about, number, location, contact, portfolio, addict, right? Links where to find me, back to the top. Once we go back actually to the top, what we can do is over here, about page, right? So we can scroll all the way down and then go back to the top. Now, if you would want to move this, right, so it actually goes to the actual unordered list, right? You would need to change the location of the top, right? So instead of over here, the portfolio, we're going to cut it out and we're going to place it over here. We're going to have an ID is going to be back to the top. And let's do actually the same thing with the website. So let's go back over here and we're going to say that it's going to be over here, ID, and we're going to say top. Once we save that, refresh. Now once we go down, click back, right? Now you can see that it brings us back to the top. Now this video was a little bit longer because I didn't want to split it, because all those things actually relate to one another, right? With the links and with actually external links. So I apologize for the video being long. However, I hope that this information was very useful to you. Now the next cool element in HTML, what we're going to learn, is going to be the iframe element. An iframe element is very good for displaying actually a different data in your own website, and you don't need to actually refresh the page to actually display that data. So here I'm going to write this is going to be iframe, right? So this is going to be our opening tag, and you can see that it closes right away for us, right? And what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to write away as with an image. We're going to say a width is going to be 200. and the height is going to be 200, right? So this is going to be our little box, right? And what we would need to do over here, we have a source. And over here, first one, we're going to use an external source, right? So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to say this is going to be HTTP, right? Over here, and 2 forward slashes. And then we're going to say this is going to be ESPN.com, right? So ESPN.com. So I save it over here. And once we refresh the live preview, right, you can see that I have my ESPN, right? So obviously if I would have made the iframe bigger, right, I can just go ahead over here and read the ESPN, right? And you can see that I'm in my index HTML, right? I'm not in actual ESPN.com, right? So I'm still in my site. However, over here you can see that I have the ESPN, right? So this would be the first case. Let's go over here and let's just copy this guy, and we can actually point it to the image the same way. So if I go back over here to the source, and if I'm going to delete this, and if I'm going to say images, right, images, and then let's say this is going to be coffee 1, right? So again, we're going to save this, and once we refresh over here, now you can see that I have my coffee image, right? And the first one is going to be a ESPN, and then we have a coffee image. And the third case that we're going to use is going to be actual for our actual page, right? So we're going to go back over here, and for the source, we're going to use the website, right? So that's going to be our main site that we created, website HTML. Let's just save it, and let's actually go over here to our HTML and find where's the index, right? So it's going to be a little bit easier for us to see, and if it's going to open today. And over here we have an iframe, right? And this is going to be our index HTML. This is the ESPN right now, right? You can see that it's actually very, very big, right? So we're scrolling basically through the whole page. And if we go over here, this was our image, right? So maybe let's make them smaller, because this is otherwise kind of annoying for us, right? So we have 100, and let's change this one to 100, this one to 100, and this one also to the 100, right? Let's save this, and once we refresh the page, right, so now they're 100 by 100, so this is our ESPN, this is going to be our coffee image, right, and this is going to be our website, right? Obviously this wouldn't be the ideal scenario. There's a lot of other things that we would have to do with this iframe. However, it does give us a good idea what we are able to accomplish with it. And another cool thing that we can do with iframe, we can actually link it with a link, right? So here I'm going to say this is going to be iframe over here like this, and I'm going to have a closing tag, and over here I'm going to say, let's say 50 by 50, right? So width, we have 50, and height, right? So over here height, and let's just get that code hints, right? So which one is not working? So we're going to have a height, and we're going to say that this is going to be 50. You can see that I have a mistake that I'm writing over here in a quotation mark, right? So over here I need to have a width, right? And over here this is going to be height, right? So I'm going to say 50. So let's set 2 of them, and also add another attribute, and this is going to be name, right? And over here we're just going to write simple, this is going to be a frame, right? So this is going to be a simple name. And once we have this, you can see obviously there's nothing in here, right? However, if we would create a link over here like this, and we're going to say a link, and this is going to be an href, and then we're going to say this is going to be HTTP over here like this. Again, I'm for some reason typing them with 3 T's, which is not necessary. And now again, I'm going to say ESPN, ESPN.com over here. But over here, what I'm going to say, this is going to have a target, right? And I'm going to have over here the same name, right? So if this is frame, then also obviously over here I'm writing name, right? And over here I'm going to write this is going to be ESPN. ESPN. Let's save this, and once we actually have saved this, let's go back to our HTML, right? And let's start where is our index, right? Double click over here, and we can close this one out. And actually if we have it over here, and if we click it, right, you can see now I have ESPN, right? So I've actually targeted, right? And now I have the ESPN. Now maybe in this case we can make it a little bit bigger, right? So let's make it something like 75 over here like this, and here like this, right? And the real beauty with this one, right? So now I have 75, right? And as you can see, it click it, but actually I didn't have to refresh the page, right? So you can see the link actually got the information, right? Went out and got the information, and now we have our ESPN in here, right? Now another thing that we can do is we have one link, right? And let's try the other things that we were doing before, right? So we'll have 3 links, right? So this is going to be our own coffee site, right? So I'm going to say coffee over here. And this one, the href, right, is obviously going to be our coffee website. And what was the href, right? This was website over here, this guy. Now another one was our actual image, right? So let's go back over here, and the href would be actual image, right? So if we go back over here, and we're going to say this is going to be images, and over here we're going to look for, let's say, coffee 1, right? And you can see that all of them still are targeting a frame, right? So this frame, the name is going to stay the same, right? Over here we're just going to change where we're getting for our link, right? So we're going to say coffee over here, image, and this is going to be coffee website, right? So we have these two. Let's go back again over here. We need to refresh, right? So now you can see that whatever my headings are really big. And you know what? I actually know why, right? So we had 400, right, set over here. So now once we go back to normal, 100 is going to look something like this, right? So now we have ESPN, coffee, image, and websites. And you know what? Let's do over here a little bit differently. Let's do a line break over here. Then once we have our first one, let's do another line break over here, and let's do another line break over here like this. Now we have 3 of them, and they actually have line breaks, right? So what happens here, right? If I click over here, this is going to be ESPN, and maybe now, right now, we can actually make it normal, right? Because when we don't have 400 zoom in, right? So this is going to be looks a little bit more decent, right? So 150 by 150, right? And check it out over here. Are we reloading or are we not as we're clicking, right? So first one is ESPN, right? Then this is going to be our actual image, right? Again, a little bit annoying the way it looks like. So let's do 450, right? So it's going to be a little bit bigger over here like this, right? So this is going to be bigger. And again, check over here. Are we reloading or no? Right? I'm getting the ESPN. I'm getting over here the image. And I'm getting our website, right? And you can see that we didn't have to do anything, right? We're still in our browser, right? And we're not reloading the page. It's not like we're refreshing, right? And again, everything loads. No, we actually can click over here with the links, and the iframe actually has the destination. It gets the destination and replace it in an iframe, right? So very nice. And lastly, let's check it out how we can use the iframe with Google Maps. However, for that, we're actually going to go back to our project, and we're going to go and find where it is our location HTML, right? So we're going to go back over here to location HTML. And what we would want again is to copy and paste the information from about HTML, right? So I'm going to go back to about HTML. And again, we're going to grab this. And before we do that, actually, let's check the numbers, right? Because I think with the numbers, it still stayed with about page. And over here, we would need numbers page over here, right? So let's just do this correctly. So then I can close this, and again I'm gonna get an about page, and again we're gonna copy and paste it all the way to the heading 2. So where it is, image about me over here, and we're gonna copy, and we're gonna go back where it is the actual location, right? So we're gonna copy and paste this, and just again remember that we need to change these things around, right? So this is gonna be a location over here, and this is also going to be a location, right? Location over here, and then we're going to have 2 headings. We're going to have a Udemy heading and YouTube heading, right? So this is going to be heading 3. We're going to say Udemy, and then we're going to copy and paste in YouTube, right? So over here we're going to say YouTube over here like this, and we can right away actually add some line breaks over here, just in between, right? In between, we're gonna put where we're gonna put our Google Maps. So this is gonna be line break 1, 2, right? And then we can just grab these guys over here and copy over here and paste over here. And now what we need to remember, right, that we still are missing the HTML and body tags, right? So we're gonna go back over here. We're going to say this is going to be body, and this is going to be the HTML, right? So now that this is saved, let's go actually to a Google, and let's go get Google Maps. So I'm going to go back over here, and we're going to open it up, and I'm going to say this is going to be Google Maps over here like this. Once we find the Google Maps, we click over here, and we're going to say this is going to be YouTube. Over here, YouTube. And technically, we're going to find where's the YouTube headquarters, right? So I'm going to say is over here, share, right? And you can see once we have the embed map, what we can do is we can just copy and paste this, and you can see that right away it is an iframe, right? So we're going to go back over here. Where is our location, right? And we're going to find where is YouTube first, like this, and we're going to copy and paste this, and we're going to refresh. And over here now you can see that we have the YouTube, right? So now maybe let's make this one smaller, 400 by 400, right? So it's not that big. Over here like this. And then also we would need to do the same thing with Udemy. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to go back to the search, and we're going to find where is Udemy. Udemy over here, and this should be in San Francisco. It's correctly it is. So again, we'll do the same thing. We click share, and we have an embed map, and we can right away copy and paste the iframe. Over here like this, we say copy, and we're going to say copy and paste the iframe. So we're going to go back on the top where the heading 3 is, copy and paste it, and now we have the Udemy. And again, we can change this one around, 400 by 400 over here like this. And let's go ahead and let's check it out how our web page looks like, right? So again, we can close this thing out, and when we go to the website over here, now we should have a portfolio, right? Number, location, contact, right? So what we can do is for the location, we check over here. This is portfolio, coding addict, and location, right? This is for Udemy, and this is going to be for the YouTube. And the next HTML element we're going to be looking at is going to be HTML forms. And in order to have forms, what we would need to do is we would need to write a form over here like this element first, and then we have all types of forms, right? And we're going to start with the most basic one. We're going to start with an input, right? So I'm going to write input. That's going to be the syntax, and then I would need to write few attributes, right? So the first one is going to be type, right? And as you can see with the type, there's many options, right? Now we're going to not cover all of them, right? But you're going to understand the main idea, right? And the most basic one over here is text, right? Once we have the text, now we would need another attribute that's going to be name. Now for now, it's not going to be important because we're obviously not going to be collecting any kind of data, right? We're just going to use the data, right? So over here, I'm just going to write username, right? But it's not important right now. I could have just deleted this and it would work the same way, right? But once we're going to start collecting data with JavaScript, right, this is going to be important which form we're actually working with, right? Another attribute what can we have is actually size, right? So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say 15. And then let's close it out, and you can see that I have my form, right? So what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to write that this is going to be, let's say, username, right? So I'm going to have a paragraph over here, and I'm going to write username, right? And let's maybe grab this form over here, cut it out like here, like this, copy and paste it, right? And what we probably, it's better if I just zoom in over here on the right-hand side, right? Now you can see this is going to be my username form. Right now, another attribute that I can actually add to the input over here is going to be max length, right? So that says pretty much max how much you can type. So if I go back again to my code hints and I type max length over here, and let's say I'm going to say this is going to be 20, right? So if I save this, right, over here, and if I stop typing, right, it's going to stop actually at 20. Cannot add more than 20 characters, right? If you don't believe me, let's make size, let's say, disappear altogether, right? And let's say max, let's put max to 5, right? So over here, max is going to be 5. So over here, I'm going to say coding, and you can see I cannot finish, right? You can see that 5 is going to be actually max. And this is going to be it for the input type, the most basic one, which is going to be text. And now that we're done with a text input form, now let's create a password input form. So again, I'm going to write a paragraph over here like this, and I'm going to say that this is going to be a password. First of all, password over here, then I put a colon, and then over here, we're going to write this is going to be input again, right? So we're going to again start input. Over here, we're going to say type, and this time we're going to look for password, right? So we found a password, and then we're going to say name, which is we're not going to use it for now, and then we're going to say password over here like this. And then again, we're going to have a size attribute. Let's say 15. And now you already know the max length, right? So max length over here. Let me get again my code tips. Max length over here. And again, we're going to say something like 20, right? And over here. And the difference with the password is, as you can see, as I'm typing, right, it's hiding, right? So we cannot see what we're typing. So this would be the way how we can actually put a input that is actually going to have a type for the password. And next, we're going to look at HTML forms, the text area form, right? So again, let me do this. Let me actually make it a little bit more visibly less challenging, right? So here we're going to have our paragraphs, right? And I think this would be the good time to actually add the comments, right? So here we're going to write input form, right? Then we're going to find another paragraph, and we're going to say that this is going to be a password form, or here like this. We would just need to create a comment, right? And we're going to say password form over here. And then after the password form, this is going to be the text area, right? So I'm going to have a text area over here like this. And once we have it, again, you know the drill. We're going to start with a paragraph. Over here, we're going to say paragraph. And within the paragraph, we're going to say first, what did you think about this website, right? So what did you think about, or let's say this tutorial, right? So then we have a question mark over here. And now that we have created a paragraph, it's actually time to create our text area. So over here, I'm going to have a opening tag, and I'm going to write that this is going to be text area over here like this, and I'm going to close it right away, right? So now you can see that we have a text area appearing over here, right? And the next, what I would want to do is actually set some, again, attributes, right? So the first one, again, is going to be name, and we're going to write that this is going to be comments, right? But again, it's not important for now. But over here, we're going to write a columns, which is going to stand for how many columns. Let's say we're going to say 25, right? So now you can see the width over here changed. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a rows, right? So again, we can choose how many rows. So let's say over here, I'm going to say 10, right? So you can see that we have a pretty big text area. Now, whatever text over here I'm going to write is actually going to stay in the box, right? So enter your, or here, comments here, right? Now I can see that this text is actually here, right? So if your user comes over here and starts typing, this text is going to stay unless he actually deletes it, right? So that's really up to you whether you would want to leave it over here on the top or you want to write some comments over here. And this is going to be pretty much it for the text area. And next up is going to be radio buttons, right? So again, we're going to create a little bit more room so we can work over here. And let me make this a little bit prettier over here so you can see better. And as always, this is the useful time for the comments. So over here, I'm going to say radio buttons, right? And the radio buttons, again, we would create the same way as everything over here. We're just going to say this is going to be paragraph. And let's say we're going to say, what is your favorite, let's say, programming language, right? Or coding language. Let's call it coding. So over here, we're just going to say, please, over here, select your favorite coding language, right? Now, over here, we're going to write coding, and we're going to say language. Over here, hopefully I spelled it correctly. And what is my favorite coding language? What would be our options, right? First, I'm going to create over here a line break, over here like this, so we're not actually in the same line as our input. And over here, I'm going to say this is going to be input, and type, you guessed it correctly, is going to be radio. So we're going to go find where is radio over here, and then we have few attributes that actually, in this case, this is going to matter, right? So over here, we're going to say name, and let's say I'm going to say this is going to be a coding, right? So we're just going to call it coding, and then value, right? And over here, we're going to say this is going to be JavaScript over here. And then what we can do is we can actually close it out, right? So now we have our first one over here like this. And over here, I'm going to say JavaScript over here like this. And then what I would want to do is actually copy and paste this, right? So I have two of them, but what I would want to do is I would just want to grab this guy, 1, 2, right? Now over here, let's just create a little bit more room so we can see more what we're doing, right? And now we have 3 buttons, right? So all of them are type radio, and then the name, right? The name actually needs to match for all of them, right? However, the value, we're going to write it differently, right? So here we're going to say Java, and here we're going to write Java, right? So this is going to be the second one you can see is going to be Java, right? Now again, this guy, the value is going to be actually Python, right? So we're going to write Python over here. And instead of JavaScript, this is also going to be Python, right? So Python over here like this. Now that we save this, right, we can go ahead over here and you can see it, right? So this is going to be our radio button, right? So as we're clicking, right, you can see everything works. Now there's 2 things that I want to show you. Let's say over here you messed up with the name, right? So instead of the name being coding, you typed code, right? What's going to happen is that I can press this button also, right? And actually it doesn't make sense for radio buttons, right? The radio buttons, we actually want only one choice available, right? So we would only pick one. If we want multiple, we actually would be using checkboxes, which we're going to look at a little bit later. So we need to go back over here and just have it back normally, right? So now you can see again that I can pick only one. And then over here, if I would go to the inbox box, I have another attribute that I can choose. It's going to be checked, and over here I can set it equal to checked, right? And what's going to happen? Well, what should happen over here, checked, right? So if we refresh, now you can see that this is always going to be refreshed as we refresh the page, right? So here you can see that I'm going to go over here and again pick, and let's just for the sake of it, let's go back over here and let's cut it and let's place it over here in the second one, right? Just so you believe that I'm telling you this, right? So if we have a checked attribute on the second one, and let's refresh, and now you can see that every time the page is refreshed, where actually the Java is going to be refreshed, right? I'm sorry, Java is going to be checked. And this is going to be it for a radio buttons in HTML. And the next one up is going to be checkbox in HTML forms. So we're going to go all the way in the bottom over here, and we're going to write that this is going to be check box over here like this. And actually we're going to use the same type, right? So again, we're going to ask the same question. Please select your favorite coding language, right? But in this case, you'll see with the checkbox, we're actually going to have a few options over here, right? So I'm going to start with the paragraph. And again, I can just copy and paste the text, right? Since I don't want to retype it 2 times. So I'm going to say copy over here and paste, right? And what is going to be your favorite coding language? And then once we have this over here within the actual paragraph, right? In this case, you can see that in this case, I typed it outside, right? The line break. But let's say over here, in this case, we're just going to do an actual paragraph just so you can see that you can do it both ways, right? And then again, we're going to write that this is going to be an input, right? So I'm going to start an opening tag. I'm going to say input type, and we're going to say checkbox, right? And then we'll have a few attributes. One is going to be name. And over here, again, we're going to say this is going to be, let's say, not coding, let's say programming over here. And then we're going to have, again, value, right? And again, value over here, we're going to say this is going to be, let's say, JavaScript, right? JavaScript over here. And over here, we're going to write this is going to be JavaScript. Script over here. And then what we would need to do is grab this guy, right, together with the JavaScript and just copy again. 1, 2, right? So now we have 3 of them. Again, let's make it a little bit more visible, right? So this is going to be the first guy over here, and we would need to copy this one, right? So I'm going to say over here Java, right? And this is going to be Java. Over here Java, and then whatever we need to copy and paste this guy, right? So we're going to copy and paste this. And over here, we're going to say Python. Over here like this. And then this is going to be Python. Python over here, right? And what happens, you can already see, right? That, well, first of all, that you can see that we have actually copied more than we needed, right? So we have 2 JavaScripts for some reason, because I didn't notice that I was copy and pasting too much. So let's delete this one, right? So this is going to be JavaScript, Java. Let's maybe create one more line break over here, right? So let's go back over here and let's create one more, right? So now it looks a little bit better, right? And over here with the checkbox again, you can see what's going to happen is that we have 2 options, right? We can have even 3 options if we want, right? So that's the biggest difference between radio button and checkbox. And also we have the same thing with a attribute checked, right? So we're gonna go over here, we're gonna copy this guy, and we're gonna find where is our JavaScript, because that's gonna be our favorite one, right? And once we refresh the page, this is always gonna be, the checkbox is gonna be on JavaScript just because we added this attribute. And next form that we're going to look at is going to be actually drop down list, right? And in HTML, it's actually called select, right? So here again, we make a comment, and we're going to say this is going to be drop down list, right? Drop down list, right? Now that we have this, let's start creating it, right? And as always, the first thing what we're going to do is we're just going to say this is going to be paragraph, right? And we can just again, please, right? We can just say please select. And since I'm obsessed with a programming, right? So let's just say your favorite over here coding language over here like this. And then once we have the paragraph over here, what we would want to do is we would want actually, you know what? Let's go over here to the body and let's just add some line breaks so we can see better, because right now it's kind of hard for you to see what we're doing, right? So over here, if I go and create line breaks, what's going to happen is I can go over here. Now we have more room, right? So let me go even more, right? So we're going to be adding some way more forms, right? So this way you can see where we're working on, right? So if we go back over here and let's go over here, and I'm going to say this is going to be select, not section, select over here like this. And then once we have a select, right, you can see that this one right away appears, right? And within the select, what I'm going to say, this is going to be name, right? This is going to be the attribute we have to use with a select. And over here, I'm going to say that this is going to be languages, right? Wages over here. And in the select box, we actually have to write a option, right? So over here, we're going to say option, over here, option, over here like this. And then within an option, we're going to have a value. And over here, we're going to say Java, right? And this one is also going to be Java. And then we're just going to copy and paste this. And this is going to be script. And this is going to be script, or your JavaScript, and this is going to be Python. Python over here, and then Python over here. Over here. And then what happens is, obviously, as I click it, right, you can see that I have the options right away, right, of which ones I can actually select from. Now, one more thing, one more attribute that we can add over here. You remember this guy, right? When we had a checkbox, it was checked, right? Let me find it right over here. Remember this one, right? When it was actually checked. Over here, we have the similar one that is actually called selected, right? And actually, we have 2 ways how to write. Well, actually, there's the first ways is in HTML, right? We actually don't need to write anymore this checked and checked over here in HTML5, right? I was just typing because so you know that actually you can set the value equal to, right? So this would do the same thing if I don't set it equal to, right? You can see that I'm working with JavaScript and actually right away it is selected, right? Because I typed it over here. So if I would just cut it out and put it somewhere else, right? So you can see now it's back to Java because it's the first one. Let's say I'm going to go back over here and copy and paste it. Right now I can see the Python. Now over here, again, it would work the same way if I would write selected, right? So it is the same thing as just over here in HTML5, they pretty much made it easier, right? So you don't need to set it value equal to, right? We used to do it like this over here, but then in HTML5, we actually switched that we can write over here selected, right? So we just type one name and that's it, and we're done, right? And actually, the moment we actually load the page, it is going to be selected. And next we're going to look at file input box. So let's scroll all the way down over here. We're still in our form, right? Let's make a comment. This is going to be file input box. Let's make the over here space, right? So now we have the select box, and over here this is going to be file input box. So over here what I'm going to say that this is going to be a paragraph over here like this, and I'm just going to write this is going to be file input box over here. And then we would need to do the same drill. We would write over here input over here, not input, but input over here. And then we're going to have a type, and I messed up over here, type, and we're going to say this is going to be equal to file, right? So over here we're going to write this is going to be file, and then let's say name, right? And we're just going to say username, right? Username over here. Again, the name right here doesn't really matter what we have, right? So here you can see that we have right away file, right? And you can see that it goes right away to our actual computer and looks for it, right? So you can test it again outside, right? I'm not making this up, right? So if I over here click, right, we can get the file, right? This is going to be an HTML tutorial, and we can actually select the file that we want, right? Now, again, we're not going to be doing any kind of backend right now, right? So this is just going to be over here for show. And over here, what we can do is we can look at another one. Interesting, right? This is going to be input type submit, right? So here I'm going to write input and type. And if I say submit over here, and then we're going to say value, right? And we're going to say upload over here like this. And we close it out. And now you can see that I actually have a button over here, right? Let's make it a line break so it's kind of separated a little bit. Line break over here, right? And you can see that I have a file, and over here this is going to be my button, right? So I just copy this one, right? And this is going to be my button to actually upload, right? Again, there's not going to be, nothing is going to be happening, right? Because we haven't connected any kind of backend, right? This is just, we're working with a user interface with a front end, right? But once we actually correct some kind of server, right, to this would actually work as a button that once we press it, right, once we get the file over here, we can actually upload it somewhere. Just to make sure that we actually understood what we're doing, let's work one more time with submit button, right? So again, we're going to go all the way over here in the bottom, right? And what we're going to do is we're just going to say this is going to be paragraph submit button over here like this. Once we have the submit button, we're actually going to create a few lines, right? So again, we're going to say a paragraph, and over here we're going to say subscribe to our email list, right? Once we have the paragraph, then actually create a input, right? And we're going to use a simple text input. So we're going to say type, and we're going to say text over here like this. And then we're going to have a name, and we're just going to give it this time an email, right? And then once we have this, we're actually going to create a input type submit, right? So here you can see where we're working, right? So for the input type, we're going to say input, and we're going to say type, and we're going to say submit over here like this. And once we have the submit, again, we can write a name, subscribe over here. But for the value, that's going to be appearing, right? So if we write the value, that's going to be actually showing on our button. So here, if I'm going to write subscribe over here and close this one out, and you can see over here, now I have my subscribe button, right? So again, most important part, remember that value is going to be the one that's showing, not the name, right? So name is going to be actually used once we actually want to retrieve the button, right? But the actual value is going to be the one that's going to be written on the button. Now, another thing that we can look at is going to be the image button, right? So let's go over here. I'm going to say image button, right? So two buttons that we can create. And this is going to be very, very interesting, right? Because we can actually use for a image, the source is going to be the button, right? So let's create another one of these comments, right? You can see that I actually messed up over here with a submit button. I didn't create a line, so I'm going to say submit button, and here this is going to be the image button over here. And once we go down here, we're going to say that this is going to be another one, subscribe to our email list, right? So we're going to say paragraph, and we're going to say subscribe to our email list over here. And then we're going to have a input, and then we're going to say type, and then we'll say text, not tab in text. We're going to be type over here, text. Once we have the text, then again, we're going to say name, and this is going to be email over here. And then now we would want to create an image button, right? So we're going to start the same way. We're going to say image, input over here, and type, we're going to say this time image. I'm going to go back, where's the image over here. Once we click the image, and if you remember, for the image, we needed a source, right? So again, let's go to images, and let's find where is Udemy link, right, over here. And once we close this one over here, right? Over here you can see that we have a message image, right? Now again, let's do the width attribute over here, 50, right? So then it's going to be much more smaller. And over here, let's say height is going to be, let's say 20 pixels, right? So something like this. Again, if we make it 50, it's obviously going to be bigger, right? Now it's not the best looking button right now because it is, you know, you obviously need to pick the right image, right? But it is the button over here, right? So maybe let's select a different image. Let's go with the YouTube and let's see how that one looks like, right? So YouTube, right? And now you can see again, right? So this is going to be our image that's actually placed within the button, right? And maybe let's do a little bit of house cleaning. Let's do a line break over here. Now you can see that this is going to be a new line, and let's copy and paste this, right, 2 times, and now we have the submit over here like this, right? So this is going to be our image button. Lastly, let's talk about label element, field set element, and legend element. So I'm going to go over here again in the bottom, and we're going to create a comment. I'm going to say label, field set, and over here legend, right? And let's start with the field set and legend. And field set and legend are actually used for grouping the elements together, right? So what I can do, let's say that we have a submit button, right? And we had an image button, right? And let's say we would want to group them together. So what I would do over here, I would write field set over here, field set, and over here I'm going to close it out, right? So now I have my field set, and over here on the top I can write a legend, which is going to be like a title, right? And over here I'm going to say buttons, right? And I'm going to put the colon here, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this where submit button ends, right, all the way like this, and I'm just going to copy and paste this, right? So once I copy and paste this, now you can see that I have these buttons, right? Right now they're grouped nicely together, right? Now obviously we can create another one, right? So let's say that we're going to create a field set, and we're going to say, again, this is going to be legend, right? This is going to be a legend for the top, and we're going to say that the legend would say, let's say input forms, right? So input forms over here, and then we're going to have a colon. So if I'm going to go back all the way to the top, the first ones that we learned, right? So let's say all the way where the text area ends, right? So we're going to grab these guys, copy and paste this over here, and copy and paste it over here, right? So now, actually, you know what? Let's go and look at how on a big website it looks like, right? On our actual site. So I'm going to go over here. We're going to find where's the index over here, and we're going to try to open it in our Chrome, right? And over here you can see this is going to be index, right? So if we go over here, you can see right now, right? So this is going to be a field set for our buttons, right? With this legend over here. And this is going to be our input forms, right? Now if we want, over here, let's go ahead and let's create some line breaks over here like this. And we can just save this, right? And if we refresh, right, now you can see the difference, right? So this is going to be the field set, and again, this is going to be the legend. Now there's one more thing that I want to show you, and that's going to be label, right? And let me show you what label does. So here, the label has actually 2 options. We can write label 2 ways. So here I'm just going to say input, and I'm going to say type, and let's say just text over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to write that this is going to be name over here, right? And we have input type text, and let's say name is also going to be like name, right? So very simple, very basic, right? And let's copy and paste 2 of them right now. Let's get this guy, cut, and over here paste, and I can actually made a mistake, right? So I want 2 of them, but I would want this one on a new line, right? So just so we can see the difference, right? So we're going to place it in a new line. So we have 2 of them over here in the bottom. And let's make a little bit more room so actually they stand out. And let's see the difference. And let's remember that the top one is actually label, and the bottom one is without a label. So let's go back over here. Let's refresh the page, right? So this one, the top one was the actual label. Let's see over here, right? You can see that I'm clicking on a name, right? And nothing is happening. And only if I click on actual form, it actually lights up over here like this. Now let's try with the label, right? And you can see what happens. What's happening is that within the label, the moment I actually click on it, right, it's actually lighting up the form. It's actually good for a mouse users and actually for visually impaired, right? So therefore, in real life, we use for every form over here this label one, right? And like I said, we have two options how to use label. Now let's go ahead and let's actually look at the second way how we can apply a label. So over here you can see that I have my name over here like this, and what I would want to do is actually place a label, right? But I'm going to place only the name in a label, right? Over here like this, cut it out, and let's paste it, and let's just double check, right? Refresh, and you can see that nothing is happening, right? Still nothing is happening even though I placed the label. Now what we would need to do over here, we would need a for attribute over here like this, and then over here we're going to write a name, right? Now over here I would need to actually connect it. So if I write over here an ID, and I'm going to say name, right? They obviously both need to match. So if we go back over here and test it out, right? Now you can see that it's working. Now obviously if I mess up over here and if I say num, right, instead of name, and we refresh, this shouldn't be working, and it isn't, right? Because this attribute needs to match with an ID that we have, right? So let's go back over here, let's say name, and let's refresh, and now you can see that everything is working. And this is how we should be working with field set and legend and over here label elements in HTML. Now that we have learned everything about HTML forms, let's actually go ahead and apply that knowledge, right? So again, we're going to find where is contact, right? So this is going to be our page, and we can grab again from about, and we're just going to copy and paste some stuff, right? So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go again to the heading 2, right? So I'm going to just copy this one, and we're going to look at, we can close the index out, and we're going to find where is contact, right? So this is going to be contact us page over here, and again, let's remember to add the HTML over here, and this is going to be the body, right? These two, and then over here about me, we're going to say this is going to be contact, and over here this is going to be contact, right? So this is not going to be about page, this is going to be contact page. Now I'm going to save this, and over here let's start placing whatever we have, right? So let's just save it, let's double check that it works. We can close this guy out, and where's our website over here, and this one is not needed anymore. And you can see this is going to be our portfolio, and for the contact, right, we have nothing in here, right? So now we're going to start applying whatever forms we have learned before. And over here I'm going to start with a field set over here like this. I'm going to say first that it's going to be a form, right? So we're going to have a form, and within the form we're going to place a field set over here like this, and the field set is obviously going to have a legend, right? So over here we're going to say this is going to be legend over here, right? And within the legend we're going to say this is going to be your details over here like this. Let's put a colon, right? And over here we're going to start placing our forms. So I'm going to say label first, and for the label we're going to have a name, right? A colon over here, and then we're going to have an input, right? So here we're going to write a input, and for the input we're going to have a type and text over here like this, and then we're going to have a name, and for the name we're going to have, and then we'll have for the size, right? And the size we're going to say this is going to be 30 over here. Let's close it out, and let's actually go ahead and again let's apply that rule with a line breaks. It's not really a rule, it's just it kind of helps us out to actually see what we're doing, right? So if I go over here, because I have actually zoomed in a lot, right? So you can see I was like 125 just so you can see better. And once we have this label, we can actually copy and paste this, right? So I'm going to say this is going to be last name, and then it's going to be an email, right? So and this is going to be it for this label. Now what I would want to do over here is we're going to create a line break over here like this, and then we'll have another one, right? So we're going to go over here, and we're going to say this is going to be a line break over here like this, and we're just going to change it, right? So this is going to be name, this is going to be last name, and obviously we're going to change over here name to last name over here, and this is going to be an email over here, and we're going to say that the email is over here too. So this is going to be an email. Now that we're done with this, we actually can go ahead and create another field set, right? So first one was for our details, right? And you can see that we actually need to do something with a line breaks, right? Because they're not working right now. So let me save this and let's check it out whether we have them over here. And let's add a few more, right? So over here, we're going to say this is going to be copy and this is going to be copy, right? So we have a little bit more line breaks. So it's a little bit easier for us to see. Then after that, the second field set would be your review, right? So what we're going to write over here, we're going to say this is going to be field set over here, just outside the first one, right? So field set, and then we'll have a legend, right? And again, maybe let's create some line breaks so it works better over here like this, and 1, 2, right? And then we have a little bit more room. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be legend, and we're going to say your, over here, review, right? So now that we have this, let's actually create a paragraph, right? So over here, I'm going to say this is going to be a paragraph. And within the paragraph, we're going to start with the label, right? And in this case, we're going to use not legend, label. The second option, right? Label over here. And we're going to write for. And for attribute, we're going to say this is here about over here. And then once we have the label, and let's write within the label, actually, how did you, and we're going to say here about us over here like this. So this is going to be our label, and then we'll have a select box, right? Still within the paragraph, we go over here, and we're going to write, this is going to be select over here, a name, right? And we're going to give it, this is going to be simple name select, but remember that we needed ID, and we're going to say here about. Right, so now they actually match both of them, right? So once I'm going to click on this guy, this actually should lighten up, right? Then over here, if you remember, for the select box, we needed options, right? So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say this is going to be an option, and the option is going to be value, and we're going to say Google over here like this, and then we're going to have Google, right? And then let's just copy and paste this a few times, and again, 1, 2, 3, yeah, total 4. Value over here for the second one, we're gonna have friend, right? Then we're gonna have commercial over here, and then we're gonna have another. So we're gonna write other, and over here we're gonna write other. Then this is gonna be commercial, and this is gonna be friend. Right, and now we're slowly but surely we're moving towards a next form, right? So once we go outside this paragraph over here, we're going to create another one, right? And we're just going to say simply that this is going to be a paragraph, and over here we're going to write would you over here visit again over here like this, we're going to write, and this is going to be a question mark. Now that we have this, we're going to create a line break, right? So we can go over here, and still in a paragraph, we're going to write this is going to be a line break over here like this. And then within the line break, we're going to say this is going to be a label over here, label. And then over here within this label, we're going to write that this is going to be input type over here, radio. And then once we have this, we're going to say name, and we're going to say rating over here, and then we're going to have a value, and the value is going to be yes over here, and we're going to write over here yes over here. Then the next one is going to be no, and then we're going to have maybe, right? So again, we'll have these labels, and we're just going to have 1, 2, 3, and this is going to be no, and over here we're going to write no, and over here we're going to say maybe. And here we're going to say maybe over here. And then after that, we're going to create another paragraph, right? So another after this one, right? Still in this same field set. We're going to say paragraph over here like this. And then we're going to have a label for comments. So we're going to say label over here. And we're going to say that the label is going to have a attribute for over here. And we're going to say comments over here like this, and then we're going to write comments over here. This is going to be the way. So now we have the label, And over here, we're going to create a line break over here like this. And then within the line break, we're actually going to have a text area over here like this. And then within the text area, this is going to be rows 10 and column 50. Columns is going to be 50 over here like this. And then once we have that, we're going to say that the ID is going to be comments, right? So they should match comments over here. Basically, it should be exactly the same as this one, right? So now once we have the text area, now this is going to be for our comments. We can actually maybe create a line, one more line break over here, right? So now we have a little bit more room. And then after the text area, let's actually have a input, right? And we're just going to say that input is going to be sitting in its own label. So label, and over here we're going to say this is going to be input over here, and we'll say over here this is going to be type. It's going to be checkbox over here like this. Then once we have the checkbox, we're going to say name, and we're going to say subscribe over here, and then we're going to use the checked option, right? So over here we're going to have a checked option, and we're going to write over here sign me up, and let's, you know what, let's create another line break over here. So it's actually a little bit better, right? And over here we're going to sign over here, sign me up for email updates over here. And then the last one, we're going to have another line break, right? So after this label, but still within this the same paragraph, right? Over here, and say this is going to be line break. And then over here, what we're going to write is that we're going to be a submit button, right? So here I'm going to say this is going to be input type over here. We'll say submit, and the value is going to be submit if you dare. Submit if you dare, right? And then we close this one out, and now we have submit button. Now, obviously, again, we can copy and paste, so just so it's a little bit more. And let's save everything. Let's go back over here. This is going to be our contacts, right? So now you can see this is going to be our other one, right? Your review. And maybe let's put a colon here. Where is the blah, 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 review, comments, and review is over here, right? We save this and we refresh, and now we have the actual colon. And now let's go back to the portfolio, and let's just start everything from beginning, right? So this is going to be our main portfolio. We slide over here, right? We can see that this is going to be our links. This is going to be our images, right? This is back to the top. So we go back to the top. Then we go to about page, right? So this is going to be again portfolio, coding addict over here. This is the block quote. Again, the images, the text, the paragraphs, back to the top. Over here, this is going to be the numbers, right? So this is going to be our simple table and everything from the previous pages. Then it's going to be the location where we're using the Google Maps, and we're spying on Udemy and YouTube offices. And the last one is going to be contact, right? Or we can click over here just in case so we have it, right? And if we slide down, right, you can see that this is going to be our contacts page. And this is going to be for the HTML tutorial, and I hope to see you guys on the CSS tutorial.